Chapter 680. The vice president was stunned for a moment before he said to the two, "You don't know, but his talent won't be wasted if he goes to the spiritual academy. I met him before he entered the academy and gave him a star token to come to the star cloud. Who knew that he would come to the alchemy department, so I want to transfer him to the spiritual academy." No, if he's transferred to the spiritual academy, what will happen to our alchemy department? It wasn't easy for us to recruit him, and he's the only student in our alchemy department. If he's transferred to the spiritual academy, then the alchemy department. The two alchemists were anxious. It wasn't easy to recruit a student, but the vice president wanted to transfer him to the spiritual academy. How could that be? Outside, the big black bear in white glanced into the cave abode, and then walked away. Inside the immortal's cave, the vice-chancellor and the two alchemists were arguing. Seeing this, Feng Jiu stealthily prepared to slip out of the cave. However, as soon as she stepped out of the cave, the vice-chancellor shouted, "Enough! Stop arguing. Anyway, he's a student of the academy. How about this?" As the vice president spoke, he looked at Feng Jiu, but noticed that he had already walked to the entrance of the cave. He couldn't help but shake his head and say, "Feng Jiu, you can stay in the alchemy department, but you have to participate in the academy tournament." "Vice President, this isn't too good, right?" Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted. "There's nothing bad about it. It's decided then. Go and report to the spiritual academy tomorrow." "Okay, it's decided then." After saying that, he didn't say anything else as he walked out and left on his flying sword. Seeing this, the two alchemists looked at Feng Jiu and asked doubtfully, "What's the level of your spiritual power?" There were so many people in the academy, but the vice president had targeted him. Could it be that his talent in spiritual power was heaven-defying? "I'm only able to protect myself," she said embarrassedly. Now that she couldn't use her spiritual power and was stuck in the spiritual academy, she only knew that it was urgent to find a solution. Hearing this, the two alchemists asked him how he had been learning the basics of alchemy recently. They told him to ask them if he didn't understand anything and told him that the alchemy department was relying on him to work hard. Finally, they left together. Sigh. What should I do? She lay down on the grass under the tree outside the cave and sighed, feeling a headache coming on. The fire phoenix was meditating. Otherwise, she could have asked it about the green lotus. But now, she didn't even have someone to talk to. That's right, the academy's treasure might have the answer I want. She leaped up and headed straight for the treasure. She stayed in Tibet for 3 days and 3 nights. She stayed there for 3 whole days and 3 nights without coming out. She read almost all the books related to it. Finally, she made some progress. Having not rested for 3 days and 3 nights, she looked a little tired, but her eyes were shining with a dazzling light. It was indeed the Chaos Green Lotus. The Primal Chaos Green Lotus could cultivate primal chaos techniques. With the two complementing each other, the chaos cultivation method could nourish the Chaos Green Lotus. Thinking of this, she quickly returned to the immortal's cave and flashed into the space. She found a shabby book among the cultivation methods left to her by her master. That's it. Chapter 681. After finding the Heart Sutra, she immediately started cultivating in the space. The spiritual chi in the space was much denser than outside, so her cultivation speed was much faster. Because of this, she forgot about what was happening outside. Half a month later. Feng Jiu, are you there? Yi Jing called out from outside. Because the cave had a barrier, she couldn't enter, so she could only call out from outside. Feng Jiu, who was in the space, heard the commotion outside and slowly opened her eyes. After cultivating for so long, her spirit had become better and better. Under the guidance of the Primal Chaos Heart Sutra, the spiritual energy in her body could finally circulate. As for the green lotus, because of the primal chaos heart sutra, it was wrapped in a layer of gray mist. It was this layer of gray mist that prevented the green lotus from automatically absorbing the spiritual energy in her body. Nourishing the green lotus isn't something that can be done in a day. It's impossible to make it bloom in a short period of time. Since that's the case, I can only cultivate and separate a strand of spiritual energy to nourish it. She softly muttered and got up to look at the little fire phoenix, who was still meditating. The little fellow seemed to be asleep, wrapped in a ball of flames. She could only vaguely see it inside. Hearing the commotion outside, she appeared in the cave and looked down at her slightly wrinkled clothes. She casually tugged and pulled, then opened the barrier and walked out. Yi Jing. Why are you here? Seeing her, she was a little surprised. She didn't think that she would really come looking for her. Didn't you ask me to come here often? Yi Jing smiled and walked forward. Actually, I didn't come here to chat with you. The teacher asked me to come over and take a look. The vice head wants you to report to the spiritual academy. Why haven't you come over yet? Ah. She was stunned and patted her forehead, saying apologetically, I forgot about it. I've been busy recently, so I forgot about it. Yi Jing pursed her lips and smiled, then quickly come with me. The people in the spiritual academy are very curious about you. Then wait for me. I'll go take a shower and change my clothes. I'll go with you. I haven't bathed for nearly half a month. My body smells. She tugged at her green clothes and sniffed them, her face full of disdain. Hearing this, Yi Jing laughed softly and said, All right, then I'll wait for you under the tree. Hurry up. Thus, she walked over to the big black bear that was waiting under the tree. She was no longer as fearful of Xiao He as she was in the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. She knew it would not harm her, so she was quite at ease. Feng Jiu could not help but smile when he saw her sitting beside Little Black and chatting with it. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He looked around and did not see Lao Bai or Little Tun Yun. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. Where did the two beasts go? She did not pay much attention to them recently and did not pay much attention to them. She really did not know where they went to cause trouble. However, she thought that no matter where they went, they should only be at the Alchemy Academy's mountain and not anywhere else. Thus, she did not pay much attention to them. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Feng Jiu changed into green clothes after bathing. He instructed Xiao He to guard the cave before he went back to the spiritual academy with Yi Jing. Not long after the two of them left, Lao Bai, whose stomach was round from eating, came back with Little Tun Yun lying on its back. When the big black bear saw the two beasts return, it excitedly ran up and roared. Chapter 682. Ao. Seeing this, Big Black Bear excitedly roared and sat on the grass, grabbing the spiritual herbs and eating them. Many of them were spiritual ginseng. These spiritual ginseng were of different sizes, and the thinnest one was only the size of a finger. Of the three beasts, one was eating while the other two were watching. Obviously, this was not the first time they had done this. It turned out that after they came here, there was nothing to eat in the alchemy department. They ran to the neighboring medicine peak to steal spiritual herbs and spiritual fruits. Aside from spiritual herbs, the medicine peak also planted spiritual fruits. After eating them once, they became addicted. Naturally, there would be a second time. In addition, the ranks of the two beasts were not low, and they were fast. When they did something bad, one would steal and the other would keep watch. In this month, although the medicine peak was in a mess, no one was able to find them. Meanwhile, Lao Bai had also developed a new specialty by stealing spirit fruits and spirit herbs. As long as it swallowed something that it did not chew, it could store it in its stomach. When it spat it out, it would be intact. Its stomach was like a moving chinkuan bag. However, it was different from a chinkuan bag. Even if it was a freshly picked spiritual herb, it would still be fresh after a few days. Little Black became the little brother of the two beasts and was in charge of guarding the cave. When they went to the alchemy department to steal spiritual herbs, they would naturally bring some back for Little Black. In just half a month, Little Black was fed with spiritual herbs and spiritual ginseng every day. Although the alchemy department was trying to catch the thief who stole the spiritual herbs, they would never have thought that it was not a human who stole the spiritual herbs, but two beasts. On the other side, Yi Jing brought Fengjiu to the spiritual academy. When the two of them walked in, the students of the spiritual academy all looked at Fengjiu. With a glance, they knew that this green-clothed youth was the new student who went to the profound academy and defeated dozens of students without even lifting a finger. He was also the one who exchanged for one of the three treasures of the heavenly pavilion, the rainbow-glazed feather. Everyone's gazes paused on the young man's handsome face for a moment. Then, they shifted their gazes and landed on the colorful feather on his waist. They had to admit that the rainbow glass feather on this handsome young man was really beautiful. It was hard to ignore it even if one wanted to. The spiritual academies are divided into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. The Heaven grade students are the most valued by the academy. Every student is a seed student that has been carefully selected. You were personally chosen by the vice headmaster. As long as you register, you will be a Heaven grade student of our spiritual academy. As Yi Jing spoke, she brought Fengjiu to the instructor's registration area. She stopped outside the courtyard and said to Fengjiu, "It's inside. Go in. I'll wait for you here." Fengjiu nodded and went to the registration area inside. After recording his name and other information, he finally received a jade token and walked out. Looking at the jade badge, Yi Jing smiled and walked forward. "I'll bring you around the spiritual academy to familiarize yourself with it." When the two of them walked out, they saw that the outside of the spiritual academy was already surrounded by students of various grades. Each and every one of them stared at Fengjiu with unkind gazes. Seeing this, Yi Jing was about to speak, but she was stopped by a Heaven grade student. "Junior sister Yi Jing, we want to exchange pointers with the new junior brother. You don't have to interfere. Just watch from the side." As soon as that student finished speaking, a few girls walked out from the side and brought Yi Jing to the side. Chapter 683. Hearing this, everyone was startled. The Heaven rank student in the lead frowned and asked, "What treasure? Didn't you want to ask me for advice? You want me to give you advice without any treasure?" She looked at the man with an infuriating expression and said in an arrogant and wanton tone, "If you want to fight me, you have to prepare a treasure first. Otherwise, who would play with you for fun?" As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at everyone who was glaring at her after hearing her words. She smiled and said, "It's the same for all of you. If you want to fight with me, then prepare your treasures. If I lose, the treasures will naturally not be yours. But if I win, hee, you know what I mean." Looking at the students who were rubbing their fists and releasing spirit force, the smile on her handsome face disappeared. She narrowed her eyes and warned, "Don't think about fighting because you don't have any treasures. If you dare to fight, I'll report you to the vice president. I believe you all know that the vice president is my backer. If you have the guts, come and fight." When Yi Jing, who was blocked by a few female students, heard this, she couldn't help but reveal a smile. He directly brought up the vice president. Was he sure the vice president wouldn't jump to his feet when he found out? Originally, the people in the academy felt that his contribution points were strange. Now that he said this, they would all think that it was secretly arranged by the vice president. The students were all stunned. They didn't expect this youth to say such infuriating words. If they wanted to fight him, they would have to take out treasures. If they couldn't take out treasures, he would report them to the vice president. This was too shameless. "How about it? If you don't have the guts, then I'll leave." As she spoke, she looked at the few female students who were blocking Yi Jing and revealed a charming smile. "Beautiful sisters, don't block my beautiful Yi Jing." The female students were startled when they saw the youth looking at them. His charming eyes were like an intoxicating whirlpool, and they couldn't help but become infatuated. Yi Jing pursed her lips and smiled. She walked forward and naturally held Fengzhou's hand. "Let's go. I'll show you around. Next time, you'll know where this place is." As the others watched the two of them leave, they all looked at the leading heaven-rank student. Seeing that he didn't say anything, they couldn't help but ask, seniorly, "Are we at our wits' end just like that?" The man surnamed Li stared at Yi Jing holding the young man's hand and gritted his teeth. "Humph. Taking out a treasure for him to attack. That's too easy on him. I'll go look for Senior Ouyang and the others. How dare he provoke junior sister Yi Jing, whom Senior Ouyang likes. This brat must be tired of living." Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. He wanted the top 10 geniuses of the academy to fight. In that case, even the vice president wouldn't say anything, right? If Senior Ouyang and the others were to make a move, this brat would definitely be taught a lesson. Thinking of this, their faces were filled with excitement. Fengzhou, who had left with Yi Jing, lowered her head and looked at her hand. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She looked at Yi Jing and saw that she was also looking at her with a smile in her eyes. There was a glow in her eyes that she couldn't understand. They met many students along the way, but she didn't let go of her hand, which made her feel very strange. Why is this beauty Yi Jing so daring? Aren't you afraid of being misunderstood? Just as he was about to ask about it, a voice suddenly sounded from afar. "Ah Jing." Chapter 684. Hearing the voice, Yi Jing looked over and saw Bai Ruofei standing not far away. The smile on her face disappeared as she nodded lightly, "Ruofei." After greeting her, she turned to Fengzhou and said, "Let's go." Fengzhou looked at the two of them playfully and nodded, "N." He didn't say anything and walked forward with her. However, when they passed by Bai Ruofei, they saw her blocking Yi Jing's way. "Ah Jing, why have you been ignoring me recently?" Bai Ruofei said with a slight grievance as she tugged at Yi Jing's sleeve and shook it gently. "I've been busy recently," Yi Jing said. Although her expression was gentle as usual, the expression on her face was indifferent. She looked at the person in front of her and said softly, "If you don't have anything else, we'll leave first. I still have to show him around the lower spiritual academy. I don't have anything else to do. I'll go with you." She looked at Fengzhou and revealed a smile that she thought was sweet. "You're Fengzhou, right? I'm Bai Ruofei. You can call me Ruofei or Xiaofei." Fengzhou looked at her with a trace of playfulness in his eyes. "I think Little White Flower is more suitable for you." "Ah." She was startled, not understanding what he meant. Fengzhou's smile deepened, Little White Flower, a delicate and pitiful little white flower." Hearing this, and seeing the young man's enchanting eyes staring straight at her body, Bai Ruofei's face couldn't help but blush. Slightly lowering her eyes, her line of sight fell on the 7-colored glass feather at the young man's waist. There were rumors in the academy that this youth had a strong backer. Although no one knew how strong he was, it was true that he had a backer. Otherwise, he would have exchanged for the rainbow glass feather that even the 10 great heavenly prides couldn't exchange for. Moreover, the vice headmaster had personally gone to the pill department to find him and insisted on transferring him to the heaven-grade spiritual academy. It was said that he was the only one in the entire academy who occupied 2 departments. They were both students of the pill department and the spiritual academy. This was something that had never happened in Xingyan for so many years. When Yi Jing saw this, she only glanced at Fengzhou without saying a word. That day, it was Fengzhou who reminded her that made her pay attention. When she came back and thought about it carefully, she naturally felt that something was wrong. However, she did not expect that the person she regarded as a good sister would treat her like this. Recently, she had deliberately distanced herself from her. Ah, Jing and I are good sisters. Her friends are also my friends. If there's anything you need my help with in the spiritual academy in the future, just tell me. She revealed a sweet smile as she looked at the youth. Fengjiu glanced at the jade token on her waist. You're an Earth grade student, right? I heard that different grades will lead to different places to cultivate and learn. Is that true, Yi Jing? Yi Qing nodded his head. Heaven grade is black jade, Earth grade is white jade, Xian grade is green jade, and Huan grade is yellow jade. Students of different levels are also differentiated differently. Heaven grade students are seed students and are all focused on training. Hearing this, Bai Ruofei's face turned from red to white. She looked at Yi Jing with some embarrassment and then lowered her head. I remember that I still have something to do. I won't accompany you. She said in a low voice and ran away with red eyes as if she had been wronged. Fengjiu clicked his tongue. AI, this little white flower is about to cry. Did we bully her? I don't think so. She looked at Yi Jing and asked. Chapter 685. Yi Jing took her to familiarize herself with the academy. She told her about the different areas and the instructors of the heaven grade students. Finally, seeing that it was getting late, she said, "That's all for today. Remember to come tomorrow morning. Instructor Lu has a class tomorrow. He mainly teaches us how to control our spiritual energy. This class is very important, so don't be late." I know. I'll go back first. She waved her hand as she spoke. Then, she removed the feather from her waist and tossed it aside before leaping onto it lightly. Just as she was about to leave, she seemed to have thought of something and jokingly asked, "Oh right, Yi Jing, why are you so enthusiastic today? Aren't you afraid that I'll take advantage of you? You walked around with me today. Many students saw us. Aren't you afraid that there will be rumors about us?" Hearing this, Yi Jing lightly laughed. What rumors could there be with you? Hurry up and go back. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and laughed. Or did you think that my suggestion last time was good? You think that building a good relationship with me will make you my sister-in-law in the future? She paused and touched her chin. But, you haven't met my brother yet, right? Yi Jing's face turned red. She spat. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and go back. Ha ha ha, alright. I'll go then. See you tomorrow. Yi Jing saw her laughing and waved her hand. Just as she was about to leave, she saw her turn around and glanced at her. What else do you want to say? I told you not to think too much. No. I just wanted to ask. You should be eating fasting pills like them, right? Other than the instructors, all the students eat fasting pills. Okay, I know. I'll bring you something to eat tomorrow morning. She winked at her, then left on the feather. She thought that she would go to the ovens tomorrow morning to get something to eat. In a courtyard on the main peak, Mo Chen, dressed in white, was playing chess with the dean. Elder Guan has been looking for him for a long time. I didn't expect him to go to the alchemy department. I heard from Elder Guan that this kid's talent is extraordinary. But, this kid's ability to cause trouble is not something that others can compare to. Hearing the dean's smiling words, Mo Chen, who had just placed a piece, moved his eyes slightly. A trace of a smile flashed across his deep and calm eyes. That boy wasn't just a troublemaker, he would also sneak into the ovens to steal food. Is there any news about the person I'm looking for? Mo Chen asked slowly. His voice was as calm as a spring, as indifferent as an immortal. Hearing this, the dean's hand, which was about to place a piece, paused. He looked up at him and asked, Are you sure that person is really in the School of Stars and Clouds? Yes, if my master says it's here, then it must be here. But the dean frowned and said, you don't even know the characteristics of that person. You only know that she is a 16-year-old girl. There are tens of thousands of 16-year-old girls in the big star cloud. This kind of investigation will not yield any leads. The dean paused for a moment before asking, what did your master say? Did he only tell you to come to Star Cloud and find a 16-year-old girl? Hearing this, Imo-chan looked up at the sky and said softly, the star of the phoenix has appeared, and the deviant soul has entered the world. She came from beyond the heavens and broke through the 8 extremes of heaven. She will become the ruler of the world. After he finished speaking, he was silent for a long time. Just as the dean was wondering what he meant, Imo-chan looked at him and said, these are my master's exact words. This person must be found. Chapter 686. At this moment, they would never have thought that the girl they were looking for would actually disguise herself as a boy and sneak into the Academy of Stars and Clouds, avoiding the ears of everyone. Furthermore, she had already met Imo-chan. The next morning, Feng-jiu went to the ovens to grab some things. She sat on Flying Feather and headed for the Spiritual Academy. When she found Yi Jing, she pulled her to a secluded place and handed her a bag of steaming buns. Here, I brought these for you. She gestured and stuffed the bag of buns into her hands. When Yi Jing saw the steaming buns, she was stunned. Her eyes widened. You went to the ovens to steal these? Feng-jiu quickly covered her mouth and looked around. Keep your voice down. Don't let anyone hear you. What do you mean steal? I just went to get them. Yi Jing slapped her hand away. You're too bold. If you get caught, you'll be severely punished. Hurry up and eat. Once you're done, no one will know. She smiled. Hearing this, Yi Jing had no choice but to pick up one and eat it. She handed the rest to her. Hurry up and help me eat. I've already eaten. There were dozens of buns in the steamer, but she had eaten and taken a lot of them. You eat. I'll keep a lookout for you. She said, looking around to prevent anyone from coming over. This was the first time she had encountered such a thing, so she was both curious and nervous. They were obviously hot and fragrant buns, but Yi Jing couldn't taste anything. She finished the buns in a few bites and took out a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her mouth. Yi Jing, when did you find out? She raised her eyebrows and looked at Yi Jing, who was wiping her mouth. Find out what? She pulled up her sleeves and sniffed to see if there was any smell of buns. She didn't even raise her head. Stop pretending. If you didn't know, why would you dare to come near me so openly? Hearing this, Yi Jing was stunned. She raised her head and looked at her. Then she smiled. When I got back, I felt that something was wrong. After thinking about it, I guessed it. How did you guess? She didn't show any signs of being a woman, so how did she know? I can't tell from your actions and expressions, but your hands are very soft. They're not a man's hands, and her voice paused, and her gaze fell on her earlobes. Although you've disguised yourself, when you came close to me that day, I noticed your ear piercings, and a bit of a woman's body fragrance. Hearing that, Feng-jiu was enlightened. No wonder. However, so many people did not notice, but she noticed these small details. It could only be said that she was really attentive. However, I was only guessing. If you let me touch it, perhaps I can be more certain. Her gaze fell on Feng-jiu's flat chest as she said with a smile. When Feng-jiu heard this, he immediately came back to his senses. He instinctively crossed his arms over his chest and glared. He scolded with a smile, don't even think about it. It's all right. I'll find another opportunity in the future. Yi Jing said with a smile. Looking at her androgynous face, she sighed softly in her heart. Only the heavens knew how shocked she was when she had this guess. She felt that it was impossible. After all, a woman's words and actions could not be so carefree and unrestrained. It was impossible for her to be so seductive and wanton. Yet, she did it. Chapter 687. The two of them headed to the training grounds together. Because it was a lesson on how to use spiritual power to control attributes, other than a few students who were cultivating in seclusion, many heaven-rank students were already waiting at the venue. Look, that Fengjiu is here. He's the first one to become a heaven-rank student without taking the test. Yi Jing is quite close to him. Yi Jing is the woman that Senior Ouyang likes. Who in the entire academy doesn't know? This kid dares to be so close to her. He really doesn't care about Senior Ouyang. Hasn't Senior Ouyang been cultivating in seclusion recently? He probably doesn't know about the recent events. Humph, we'll know soon enough. Fengjiu and Yi Jing came together. Before they even got close, they could hear the whispers of the students. Seeing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and smiled at Yi Jing. You have a lot of admirers. What if they're all targeting me? Yi Jing pursed her lips and smiled. Even if they didn't, they would still target you. Who told you to become a heaven-rank student without taking the test? This has nothing to do with me. It's all the vice president's idea. I feel quite wronged. You're still acting innocent after taking advantage of me. She chuckled and brought him to the side to wait. She didn't stand with the others so that the other students wouldn't pick a fight with Fengjiu. More and more students came one after another. When they arrived, they all glanced at Fengjiu with contempt and disdain. It was obvious that they all felt that this person didn't have any ability and relied on the vice president to get in. There are only 200 heaven-rank students. Fengjiu glanced around and saw that there were less than 300 heaven-rank students. Only. Yi Jing glanced at him and said, do you know what kind of test one has to go through to become a heaven-rank student? Every one of them here is equivalent to 10 earth-rank students. Fengjiu only glanced at the students' spiritual power ranks. They were all great spirit masters, with most of them being first-stage great spirit masters. The highest was only a third-stage great spirit master student. As for Yi Jing, she was also a third-stage great spirit master student. To be honest, the strength of a third-stage great spiritual master was indeed quite outstanding for a student. After all, foundation establishment cultivators were generally several decades old. Of course, people like Hui Lang were different. The place where they were born was different from theirs. Coupled with the fact that they were all selected and nurtured with the help of medicinal pills, advancing to the Golden Core realm was naturally not a difficult task for them. However, in this place, even if it was a person from a first-class country, wanting to enter the Gold Core stage and become a Gold Core cultivator in their 20s could be said to be extremely rare. To be able to do so, in addition to being a prodigy, one would also need to have the support of medicinal pills. Otherwise, how could it be so easy to enter the Gold Core stage? It should be known that the majority of cultivators died while advancing to the Golden Core realm. Don't say any more, Teacher Lu is here. He hates it when students don't follow the rules in his class. She pulled them to the front of the students and they all stood side by side, looking at the middle-aged teacher who was walking over with his hands behind his back. Fengjiu saw that the originally noisy scene had quietened down because of the teacher's arrival. He couldn't help but look at the teacher, sizing him up without batting an eyelid. Today, we are going to talk about the control of the 5 elements in the body. You all. Chapter 688. You're Fengjiu, right? He looked at the youth and asked. After recognizing that he was the youth that the vice-headmaster had mentioned, his gaze swept over him, but he was a bit surprised. He couldn't sense the slightest bit of spiritual energy from the youth. Was he hiding it? Puzzled, he used his divine sense to probe the youth's strength, but what he didn't expect was that his divine sense couldn't detect the youth's spiritual energy cultivation. He couldn't help but take this seriously. Hello teacher, I'm Fengjiu. She stepped forward and respectfully bowed. Seeing this, Teacher Lu nodded and asked, what attribute is your spiritual energy? His voice paused, then he said, I heard that you're a student of the alchemy department. Since that's the case, it must be of the fire attribute. Is it a single fire attribute spiritual root? Or is there something else? This. She thought for a bit, then said, I don't think I've tested it before, so I forgot. Hearing this, Teacher Lu was startled. Then you didn't test it before when you cultivated spiritual energy? Even your family should have it, right? Could it be that your teacher didn't mention it? Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly, I've always only cultivated spiritual energy. Before, I didn't have a teacher to guide me, so I cultivated on my own. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the students behind her were all stunned. Even Teacher Lu's eyes widened in astonishment. No teacher to guide you. Your grade is. Without a teacher to guide him, how could he not go berserk? What kind of heaven-defying luck did this youth have? Seeing that the teacher was staring at her with wide eyes, Fengjiu scratched her head, that's right. I cultivated according to the qi drawing technique, and as I cultivated, I became a great spiritual master. She really didn't know how to control her spiritual energy's attribute. When she fought with others, she mostly used her profound energy. The most she used her spiritual energy was the fire attribute spiritual energy in her body to refine pills. However, the little fire phoenix that she contracted had an ancient divine flame, so she didn't understand it. In any case, she had always used her spiritual energy according to her heart's desire and hadn't seen any major problems. Moreover, she hadn't cultivated spiritual energy for long. It was only because she had a profound spiritual body that her spiritual energy's grade rose quickly. When the students behind him heard his words, their faces flushed red and their eyes turned red. After a long while, they squeezed out 2 words, pervert. What did it mean to become a great spirit master while practicing? Which one of these heaven-grade students wasn't carefully nurtured by their families and guided by famous teachers? This brat. This brat actually said that he became a great spirit master while practicing by himself. Was this a blow to them? Director Lu was also stunned and speechless at this moment. He had taught so many talented students, but he had never met someone like this youth who had become a great spirit master without anyone's guidance. The fact that he didn't go astray during his advancement really made everyone break out in cold sweat. Yi Jing was also slightly surprised. She had thought that Fengjiu was at most a spiritual master. After all, she had been chased by her on the streets and had no chance to fight back. However, when she heard the following words, even her expression became strange. That, Fengjiu, did you just become a great spirit master not long ago? What is your great spirit master grade? Teacher Lu's eyes were filled with anticipation as he stared at Fengjiu and asked again. He really couldn't see through this youth. This. Chapter 689. Hearing this, everyone had different expressions. Embarrassed to say it? Why would he be embarrassed to say it? No matter what, he had already entered the rank of Great Spirit Master. Even if he was only a first-stage Great Spirit Master, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Hee, it's fine. Say it. If you say it, I'll know what rank your strength has reached and what cultivation method suits you. Instructor Lu said with a smile and looked at the embarrassed youth with an encouraging gaze. You don't need to feel embarrassed. The students here have all gone through more than 10 years of cultivation. Their clans have focused on nurturing them, guided by famous teachers, and supplemented by medicinal pills to reach the strength of 1st to 3rd stage Great Spirit Master. For you to be able to cultivate to Great Spirit Master is already very. I'm currently a peak Great Spirit Master. Before he finished speaking, he heard the youth say that he was a Great Spirit Master after looking at the surrounding people. When he heard that, he was completely stunned and didn't come back to his senses for a while. The surrounding people were the same. They were all stunned and stared at the youth in disbelief, thinking they had misheard. What did you just say? What rank? Instructor Lu asked with a slight stutter. Peak Great Spirit Master. I'm only waiting for an opportunity to reach Foundation Establishment. She smiled and looked at Instructor Lu, who had widened his eyes in hindsight. The surroundings instantly became quiet and the atmosphere stagnated as if it had frozen. Only the faint rustling of leaves could be heard faintly. Feng Jiu looked at the wide-eyed students and revealed an embarrassed smile. She said innocently, I told you. I'm really embarrassed to say it. I'm afraid of hurting you. Really. Everyone opened their mouths but couldn't say anything for a long time. They were indeed hurt. Just as Instructor Lu said, they were all disciples that their clans focused on nurturing. However, compared to this abnormal person, they simply couldn't compare. Yi Jing looked at Feng Jiu with a strange expression. It turned out that Feng Jiu was giving in to her on the street. She really thought that Feng Jiu wasn't her opponent. She didn't expect that Feng Jiu was already a cultivator at the peak of Great Spiritual Master. Peak Great Spirit Master, only a step away from Foundation Establishment. Her strength wasn't something they could compare to. Looking at the entire Academy's heaven-ranked students, there wasn't a single one of them who had reached Peak Great Spirit Master. At this moment, she finally understood why the Vice Dean had tried so hard to get her to join the pill department. It wasn't just her. Even Director Lu and the other students finally understood why Feng Jiu had given him such preferential treatment. With such strength and talent, he really needed to be nurtured. Perhaps, in the future, he might even have the chance to compete for the Hidden Dragon ranking of the various academies, allowing Star Cloud to stand out from the rest of the academies. Thinking of this, everyone's breathing became heavy. As one of the seated students of the School of Stars and Clouds, he naturally knew about the Hidden Dragon ranking. In the previous Hidden Dragon ranking, no one from the Star Cloud Academy made it into the rankings, but if it was the next Hidden Dragon ranking, everyone's gazes involuntarily landed on the green-robed youth. If it was him, would there really be such a possibility? However, he was merely a new student. Could it be that he really had the ability to compete for the Hidden Dragon rankings? Thinking of this, everyone had different expressions. In the end, they just didn't believe that this Feng Jiu was really that powerful. Chapter 690. Seeing Teacher Lu take out a testing instrument, Feng Jiu paused for a moment before walking forward. Come, place your hand on it and inject your spirit energy into it. Teacher Lu said as he looked at the youth in front of him with anticipation. He was very curious, what attribute did this youth have? Could it be a single fire attribute spirit root? With his talent and cultivation speed, the possibility of him having a heavenly spirit root was higher. Only spirit cultivators with heavenly spirit roots could cultivate faster than others. Take these seated students for example, each of them had a single heavenly spirit root. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to reach the level of a great spirit master in their teens or 20s. When the other students saw Teacher Lu take out the testing instrument, they couldn't help but gather around. They also wanted to know what attribute Feng Jiu had. However, since he could refine pills, his body should have a fire attribute. Could it be a single fire attribute? Yi Jing stood beside Feng Jiu. When she saw her place her hand on the testing instrument and inject her spirit energy, she couldn't help but hold her breath as she became nervous. Compared to their nervousness and anticipation, Feng Jiu didn't feel anything. Her master said that she had a profound spirit body, so her cultivation speed was 10 times faster than others. As for the attribute of her spirit root, he didn't say anything. Obviously, as long as she cultivated her spirit energy well, controlling her attribute shouldn't be a problem. Therefore, she wasn't worried at all about the attribute of her spirit root. When she instilled her spirit energy and saw a flame appear on the testing instrument, she thought that she had to bring a testing instrument back to the Phoenix dynasty. This way, they could also test if she had spirit roots. Look! It's a fire attribute, he has a single fire attribute. Before a student could finish his words, he saw a small whirlpool appear on the tester again. The whirlpool formed a gust of wind that appeared, causing everyone to be stunned. Wind attribute. He also has a wind attribute. Hiss. No. Look. That's a wood attribute. Amidst the exclamations, a green life force formed and the attribute of a tree appeared. This time, everyone was silent as they all widened their eyes in astonishment. As the verdant wood element appeared, the gold element and water element appeared one after another. Finally, even the earth element appeared. Seeing this, everyone felt their hearts beating wildly. Finally, when they saw the 5 elements appear, none of them stood out. Instead, the 5 elements were evenly distributed. Everyone was speechless. Who said that he was a ghost? Who said that he was a pervert? He was clearly a trash of the 5 elements. Seeing everyone staring at her as if they had seen a ghost, Fengjiu withdrew her hand. She didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the 5 attributes. At least, others could only use one attribute, but she could use all 5. Teacher Lu. Seeing the teacher in front of her was looking at her with pity, Fengjiu asked. Sigh. Teacher Lu sighed. Looking at the youth in front of her, she said, "What a pity, what a pity." The 5 elements attribute is the worst spirit root among spirit cultivators. It is also known as a mixed spirit root. Not to mention the slow cultivation, it will be difficult for you to enter the foundation establishment stage. What a pity, what a pity. Chapter 691. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. The worst spirit root. It seemed that even Director Lu didn't know that the 5-element spirit root was the earliest spirit root to appear in cultivation. It was also known as the chaos spirit root. She had read in the ancient records that the chaos spirit root was the beginning of spirit roots. It had the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. However, because it wasn't easy to control the 5 elements in the body, it was also more difficult to cultivate the 5 elements. Therefore, it was also known as the mixed spirit root. Later on, after some changes, the number of spiritual roots decreased and the number of spiritual roots decreased. This was because there was only one element in the body, and it was easier to control one element. However, if the chaos spiritual roots were to be cultivated with the chaos heart sutra, they would complement each other, and all 5 elements could be cultivated. She closed her eyes and hid the light in her eyes. This was the same as her profound spirit body. It was indeed unknown to others. Since they mistook it as a mixed spirit root, then it was a mixed spirit root. I thought he was really a genius, but it turns out he's just a waste. So what if he cultivated quickly in the early stages? It's useless if he can't build his foundation. Even if he's lucky enough to build his foundation, he won't be able to pass the golden core stage. He'll be like this for the rest of his life. That's right. We cultivators live for the Tao of immortality. How can we stop at a mere foundation establishment with supreme cultivation? Hey, you guys don't know, right? I've checked. This kid is from a 9th-ranked country. How powerful can he be? What? The lowest 9th-ranked country? Why didn't you say so earlier? You made me look forward to it. I wanted to say it, but he said he was a peak great spiritual master. I was stunned for a moment and thought there was a mistake. Peak great spiritual master. I don't know what kind of cultivation method this kid is cultivating. Even the teachers can't see his cultivation level. He has the 5 elements mixed spirit root. He might not even be a great spiritual master. And, that's also possible. Otherwise, why do you think he went to the pill department? That pill department is almost abandoned. They don't accept a single student all year round. Only a fool would go there. Shut up. Yi Jing's face turned cold as she shouted. When she saw Fengjiu lowering his head, she felt a little uncomfortable. When the other students saw that it was Yi Jing, all of them moved their mouths but didn't argue with her. Hence, the mocking voices also stopped. Fengjiu lowered her eyes as she listened to the mockery and Yi Jing's angry roar. She couldn't help but smile. She looked up at Yi Jing and gave her a smile, meaning, "I'm fine. All right. Let's stop talking. Let's start the class. Today, we'll teach you how to use the attributes in your body." Director LV said as he gestured for everyone to quiet down. He then began to talk about how to use and cultivate the 5 elements. After class, Director Liu was about to leave when Fengjiu called out to him, "Mentor. Is there anything else?" Director Liu looked at Fengjiu with an unconcealable look of regret. "Instructor, you were talking about the control of a single spiritual root. Then, for someone like me, shouldn't I first classify the 5 types of spiritual energies in my body into 5 types? Chapter 692. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and respectfully bowed to him. "Thank you for your guidance, teacher. I understand." Director Liu nodded and turned to leave. "Fengjiu." Yi Jing looked at her with worry in her eyes. Seeing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle. "What are you worried about? Are you worried that I have mixed spiritual roots and can't establish my foundation? Don't forget that my current cultivation is higher than yours." Seeing that Mo Tianga's expression didn't change and that she wasn't dispirited because of her mixed spiritual roots, Mo Tianga's worried heart finally relaxed. "And, the world is so big, there will always be fated chances. Even if you have mixed spiritual roots, maybe you'll still have the chance to build your foundation or even enter the gold core realm in the future. Yes, the world is so big, I want to see it." She narrowed her eyes and looked at the sky. In the distant Sky City and the 8 great empires, there was one person who had a 10-year promise with her. A 10-year promise? Would she let her stay in one of these countries for 10 years? The answer was no. In the following days, the news of Fengjiu having a hybrid spiritual root quickly spread. If it was someone else, the students of the academy wouldn't have paid so much attention to it. However, it was Fengjiu who had exchanged for the rainbow-glazed feather the moment he entered the academy. Fengjiu had also caused the people of the Profound Department to suffer a loss without being able to do anything about it. It was Fengjiu who was highly regarded by the vice-headmaster and was even transferred to the heaven-rank spiritual academy when he was still a student of the alchemy department. His every move was under the attention of everyone. However, when the news spread, everyone rejoiced in his misfortune. At this time, Fengjiu didn't go to the spiritual academy after reporting to the academy and attending a class the next day. She was busy with her own cultivation and didn't have time to inquire about the outside world. Guan Shilin also didn't come out of the profound tower, but on this day, Xiao Han came. "Little brother Feng. Little brother Feng," he shouted from outside the cave. At the same time, he looked at the holy beast-level big black bear guarding outside the cave with a look of surprise. During this period of time, he had heard many things about Fengjiu. He had also heard that in addition to a strange horse and a meatball-like pet, he also had a particularly frightening big black bear. As a result, those who wanted to cause trouble for him did not dare to provoke him when he was hiding in his cave residence. Yes, that's right. Fengjiu had not been seen around the academy recently. Everyone said that he was hiding and did not dare to show his face. "Brother Xiao." Fengjiu opened the barrier and walked out. He was somewhat surprised by Xiao Chen's arrival. "Why are you here?" "What? Can't I come?" He smiled and said, "I just came back from a mission. I heard that you were here, so I came to drink with you. Look, I even brought roast chicken." He took out 2 packets of roast chicken from his space and said with a smile. Seeing this, Fengjiu wanted to invite him into the cave residence. Who knew that he would wave his hand and say, "The two of us are not outsiders. Come, come, come. Let's drink under the tree." Hearing this, she couldn't help but smile. They went to the grass under the tree and sat on the ground. "You don't know, right? I'm also a heaven-ranked student of the Spiritual Academy. However, I wasn't there on the day you attended the class, so I didn't meet you. After that, I received a mission and went out. This time, I came back to find you." Chapter 693. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "Okay, I'll remember it." She raised her wine bowl and gave him a deep look. "Brother Xiao, this is to you. This is to you. Even when everyone was avoiding me, you still didn't give up and invited me to drink. This is to you. Even though we're just acquaintances, you still dared to stand up for me. I, Fengjiu, will remember this kindness. Ha ha ha, come, cheers." He laughed loudly, raised his bowl, and downed it in one gulp. The two of them drank and ate under the tree, chatting happily. On the other side, the three beasties were lying on the grass, swallowing their saliva as they watched. On the other side, the dean was sipping tea with the vice dean and Mo Chen. The dean and the vice dean were talking about recent events in the academy, while Mo Chen was quietly listening. I really didn't expect this. Fengjiu's strength is so outstanding, and his speed of advancement is also extraordinary. How could he have a 5 elements hybrid spirit root? The vice dean shook his head, somewhat unable to accept this fact. Perhaps he encountered some good fortune, otherwise how could he advance so quickly? You and I both know that 5 elements hybrid spirit root is difficult to reach foundation establishment. In this lifetime, I'm afraid he'll be stuck at great spirit master level. As the dean spoke, he lightly sipped his tea. I don't want to believe it. Such a good seedling. As far as I know, 5 elements spiritual roots are also chaos spiritual roots. Hearing this, the vice dean looked at Mo Chen, who was lightly sipping his tea. Chaos spiritual roots. That's right, I remember now. 5 elements spiritual roots are indeed chaos spiritual roots. That's the ancestor of all spiritual roots. However, after many years of evolution, 5 elements spiritual roots rarely appear. Most of them are single or dual spiritual roots. Because 5 elements spiritual roots are extremely slow to cultivate, they gradually became known as hybrid spirit roots, or trash spirit roots. As the dean spoke, he looked at Mo Chen and said, "This matter happened a long time ago." "How did you know?" "I've seen it in ancient records. I've also asked Master before. Master once said that those with chaos spiritual roots are people blessed by the heavens." He lightly tasted the tea, his voice indifferent and slow, but in his mind, he was thinking about the smiling face of that young man. If he knew that he had the 5 elements spiritual roots, would he really do as those students said and hide inside the school and not dare to go out? Although he didn't know him that well, he could tell that the young man's temperament was extraordinary. Rather than hiding away, he felt that it was more likely that the young man was thinking of a solution. Another few days passed. On this day, the instructors of the pharmaceutical department furiously sought out the dean and vice dean. "Why are you all so angry? What's going on?" The vice head looked at the furious instructors and was somewhat surprised. Could it be that someone had angered these instructors? "Headmaster, vice headmaster, this matter must be dealt with strictly. It must be investigated thoroughly," one of the instructors said angrily. "What matter must be dealt with thoroughly?" The dean was also surprised. "Headmaster, vice headmaster, there's a thief who stole spiritual herbs. The spiritual herbs of our Yao Peak have been stolen every few days. Even some of the spiritual fruits have been stolen. Some of the older spiritual ginsengs have all been pulled out. The most hateful thing is that some of the young spiritual ginsengs that are only the size of chopsticks have also been pulled out. This is destroying the roots of our Yao Peak. Who would be so bold? Who would dare to do such a thing? The two of them were shocked. Didn't you investigate? Didn't you take precautions? Chapter 694. Hearing this, the dean and the vice-dean looked at each other and pondered for a moment before asking, what kind of elixirs were stolen? Did you list them? Did you check the contribution points section? Could it be that some students stole them and exchanged them for contribution points? We did, but there was nothing. Furthermore, the elixirs that were stolen were mixed, but most of them were spirit ginseng. Right now, there's less than a third of the spirit ginseng left in the medicine peak. We're worried that if this continues, the Academy's supply of spirit ginseng will be greatly reduced. Hearing this, the dean realized the seriousness of the problem and said to the vice-dean, follow up on this matter. After seeing the situation, transfer a few people from the Spiritual Academy or the Profound Academy to guard this place. We must catch the person who stole the medicine. Okay, I'll do it now. Elder Guan nodded and looked at the others. What time does the thief usually steal the elixirs? Do you have any records? Yes, it's usually around mealtime. One of the teachers replied. Mealtime? The vice-dean was startled and nodded, that's right. Since the teachers are all eating, it's naturally the best time to take action. Okay, I understand. You guys go back first. I'll go to the Spiritual Academy and Profound Academy to transfer a few people to the Medicine Peak. Hearing his words, the instructors were relieved. They nodded and left together. On the other side, after a period of cultivation, Fengjiu finally let out a sigh of relief after sorting out the 5 attributes in his body. He hadn't gone out for a long time, so he asked the 3 beasts to look after the cave while he sat on Fei Yu to go to the Profound Academy to ask if her brother had come out of the Profound Tower. When she arrived at the Profound Academy, she saw the vice-dean leading a few students from the Spiritual Academy. There were also a few students from the Profound Academy walking out. She couldn't be rude and stepped forward to greet them. Vice-dean. Oh. It's Fengjiu. Why are you here? Elder Guan asked with a smile. Looking at this youth, his heart was filled with emotions. Since I had nothing to do, I decided to take a walk. Vice-headmaster, what are you going to do? She glanced at the students of the Spiritual Academy behind her. They were all heaven-rank students, and the students of the Profound Academy were the same. Recently, Yao Peak's spirit herbs and spirit ginseng have been stolen. The instructors of Yao Peak came to me and the headmaster, so we decided to send a few students to keep an eye on the culprit and see who is so bold as to steal spirit herbs from Yao Peak. Oh, so that's how it is. In that case, I won't disturb you any further. She bowed and turned to the side. Once they were far away, she began to grow suspicious. Spirit herbs and spirit ginseng were always stolen. His footsteps toward the Xian courtyard suddenly stopped, as if he had thought of something, and the corner of his mouth twitched. What had her 3 beasts been eating recently? No, I'd better go back and take a look. Immediately, she leaped onto the flying feather and quickly headed for the cave. When she arrived at the cave, she saw that only Little Black was guarding outside the cave. Lao Bai and Little Tun Yun were nowhere to be seen. Seeing this, her heart thumped, and she knew that this was bad. Yao Peak and Elixir Peak were neighbors. If it was really those 2 fellows, then it was possible. With Tun Yun's speed and Lao Bai's help, it was impossible for them to be discovered when they stole things. She sat on the flying feather and searched in the air, looking down from time to time. She was extremely anxious. Chapter 695. When she saw Lao Bai and Tun Yun on the mountain path between Medicine Peak and Elixir Peak, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. It was really these 2 fellows who had done it. Seeing that there were already a few Spiritual Academy students patrolling the herb fields in front of Medicine Peak, her heart instantly jumped. She immediately flew down and headed towards the two beasts. Hiss! When Lao Bai saw Fengjiu, he excitedly shook his ponytail and ran towards her. However, before he could get close, he was swept into the space by Fengjiu's sleeve. Little Tun Yun saw this and was about to speak, but was also swept into the space. After Fengjiu sent the two beasts into the space, she quickly retreated from the boundary of Medicine Peak and quietly returned to Elixir Peak. She then went back to the cave and let the two beasts out. How dare you! She angrily glared at the two beasts. Master! Little Tun Yun lay down and didn't dare to raise his head. Hiss! Lao Bai also lay down and wagged his tail. The big black bear looked at them with its head tilted. It sat there in a daze and didn't know what was going on. You ate all the spiritual herbs that you stole. You went to Medicine Peak to steal spiritual herbs and didn't hand them in. You two fellows, how dare you? You're really bold. When Tun Yun heard this, he was stunned and looked at his master who was angrily scolding them. Master is angry because we didn't hand in the spiritual herbs. But we took them for ourselves. Thinking of this, Tun Yun paused and said, Master, if you want the spiritual ginseng, I can go and pluck it again. Pluck your head. Fengjiu slapped its head. Don't you know that even the vice house head was alerted by this matter? If I didn't bring you back just now, you would have been caught. If that happened, even I would be in trouble. Tun Yun shrunk its head and said softly, But master, there's nothing here that we can eat. Only Medicine Peak has it. You guys can't go to this Medicine Peak anymore. You guys obediently guard the cave and don't let anyone disturb you. I'll go refine some pills for you guys. She still had a lot of spiritual herbs in her space, so she could use them to practice. Her master was right. The cultivation speed of a profound spirit body was indeed more than 10 times faster than that of others. In addition, she had the help of the Chaotic Heart Sutra. In less than 10 days, she was able to control and categorize the 5 elements in her body. Now, every day when she cultivated, she would separate a wisp of spiritual energy to warm up the green lotus in her dantian. Her spiritual aura had already reached the peak stage of a great spirit cultivator, and she only lacked an opportunity to reach foundation establishment. However, if she stayed in the academy, she was afraid that finding this opportunity would be very difficult. After a few days, she would find an opportunity to leave the academy and try her luck. After making arrangements for the 3 beasts, she entered the cave to refine pills. This was the first time she opened the furnace and refined pills in the cave. Under the protection of the barrier, her movements were extremely quiet. Almost no one outside knew that she was refining pills in the cave's stone room. Fortunately, they didn't know. Otherwise, if the 2 instructors of the alchemy department saw this, they would definitely be so shocked that they wouldn't be able to speak. A student who had just entered the alchemy department for a few months could open the cauldron and refine pills as he pleased. From evening to early morning, he had refined nearly 10 bottles of level 1 medicinal pills for the 3 beasts. Chapter 696. On this day, Fengjiu sat on the flying feather and arrived at the mission's office. He planned to pick a mission and leave the academy to earn some contribution points. However, just as he got off the flying feather, he saw the students around him pointing at him and whispering amongst themselves. She thought that they were talking about her penta-spiritual roots again, so she did not take it to heart and continued to walk forward. However, as the students' voices grew louder and louder, it was obvious that they wanted her to hear them. She stopped in her tracks and looked at the students who were talking. What did you just say? Her voice was gentle with a hint of coldness that was hard to detect. Her handsome face no longer had its usual carefree attitude and was replaced with a cold expression that was rarely seen in the academy. Her face darkened, and the smile on her face disappeared. Her half-narrowed eyes were filled with a cold light, and the slight curve of her lips revealed a dangerous aura. Her voice was faint and soft, but it caused the surrounding people to instantly fall silent. No one in the academy had ever seen Fengjiu like this. It could even be said that ever since he had entered the academy, no one had ever seen this side of him. He did not have to be angry to show his power. His half-narrowed eyes carried a cold aura, and the faint smile on his lips made his entire aura change. This side of him made everyone feel that he was dangerous. "What did you just say?" She took light steps and approached them step by step. Her voice was gentle and cold with a chill that caused one's heart to tremble. "Don't make me ask a third time. Otherwise, I have ways to make sure that you will never be able to speak again." Hearing this, they remembered that he was from the alchemy department and had once silently taken down dozens of students from the profound department. It was obvious that he was extremely proficient in using medicine. Thinking of this, the students couldn't help but take a step back. Cold sweat seeped out of their foreheads and their voices trembled slightly. "No, it wasn't us who spread it. Everyone in the academy was saying it. We only heard about it." That's right. It wasn't us who spread the rumor that you forced yourself on Yi Jing." "Oh. Then who spread it?" she asked softly with a smile on her face. However, that smile did not reach her eyes. To a woman, her reputation was more important than anything else. Yi Jing was from an aristocratic family and there were rumors about her and her relationship with her. If they did not find out who was behind this, how could they maintain their reputation in the future? Forced himself on Yi Jing. Heh. Not only did the person who spread this rumor want to deal with her, he also wanted to destroy Yi Jing's reputation. She was really curious, who was the one who did this? The students saw that Feng Jiu was clearly smiling, but her smile was so strange and frightening. They couldn't help but say in a trembling voice, How would we know who spread this? We also heard about it. Everyone in the academy knows about it in private." Hearing this, Feng Jiu glanced at them, turned around, and walked towards the spiritual academy. Recently, if she was not cultivating, she was concocting pills and had not left the pill department. Furthermore, the pill department had sealed off all information. If she did not come to the mission office today, she would not have known that such a rumor had spread in the academy. When she arrived at Yi Jing's residence on the Flying Feather, she was informed that she had been summoned by a teacher. Thus, she headed towards the spiritual academy's teacher. However, she was stopped by a few students from the spiritual academy after walking for a short distance. Chapter 697. Glancing at them, Fengjiu did not refuse and walked with them to a courtyard. As soon as she entered, she saw that other than Instructor Liu, who she was familiar with, there were 4 other instructors, including Yi Jing. Fengjiu greets the instructors. She stepped forward and bowed. Then, she lifted her eyes and looked at Yi Jing. However, at this moment, an explosive shout came from one of the instructors. That shout was accompanied by a pressure that came from that instructor. "How dare you, Fengjiu? Do you know your crime?" Hearing this, she raised her eyebrows and looked at the instructor calmly. She asked, "What do you mean by that?" "What do I mean? Don't you know?" The instructor snorted angrily. "Let me ask you, is the rumor in the academy true?" The instructors all said that it's a rumor in the academy. Since it's a rumor, it must be fake. How can it be true? She looked at Yi Jing and said, "Moreover, Yi Jing and I are quite familiar with each other. Shouldn't the two of us, who were involved in such a matter, know better?" Yi Jing's face was still full of anger. She looked at Fengjiu and said, "I've explained this to the instructors, but they didn't believe me and insisted that you come here to deal with it strictly." "Yes, we have to deal with it strictly." Fengjiu nodded. Under Yi Jing's astonished gaze, he continued, "It's one thing for this person to tarnish our reputation, but he's also tarnished the academy's reputation. This matter must be dealt with strictly." Seeing this, the instructors were puzzled. Could it be that the rumor was not true? But if it was not true, why did it only spread to the two of them and no one else? Fengjiu, is this really just someone defaming both of you? Instructor Lu asked with a frown. Although Fengjiu had only attended one of his classes, he had a good impression of this young man. Based on his judgment, he could not be wrong. This young man was not that kind of person. Moreover, Yi Jing herself had said that there was no such thing. Thus, he really believed her. Yes, there's no such thing. Yi Jing and I are friends. I wouldn't do such a thing. Besides, am I, Fengjiu, that kind of person? Hearing his words, Director Lu nodded. Indeed, in his opinion, Fengjiu was not that kind of person. Therefore, he whispered a few words to a few mentors, and just as he was about to put an end to this matter, the mentor from before angrily said, if there was no such thing, how could it be spread? I heard that you and Yi Jing met before entering the academy. At that time, you even took advantage of her in front of everyone on the street. Do you dare say that this didn't happen? Hearing this, Fengjiu and Yi Jing looked at each other. If they didn't know who was spreading this rumor before, then after this teacher said this, the two of them could be said to be alone. There was only one person in the academy who knew about this and happened to be present. There was no one else. Fengjiu was not surprised to know that it was the little white flower's doing, but Yi Jing was not. After all, they had known each other for many years, but now she was being treated like this. Just thinking about it made her feel bitterly disappointed. Chapter 698. Hearing this, Fengjiu turned to look at the bad-tempered instructor. Seeing that his face was flushed red and he was glaring at her, blue veins were faintly visible on his neck, and his breathing was rapid and angry, she could not help but smile. Instructor, you're sick. As soon as he said this, the other instructors were stunned. Then, they frowned and looked at Fengjiu with disapproval. Even though that instructor had a bad temper, he was still an instructor. Saying that an instructor was sick was really lacking in student etiquette. Yi Jing's expression was also strange. However, she didn't think that Fengjiu was lacking in student etiquette. Instead, she was curious as to why he would say such a thing. However, when the bad-tempered instructor heard this, it was as if he was about to explode. He released his suppressive aura and attacked Fengjiu. His voice was like thunder as he roared, Fengjiu. You're too condescending. Too impudent, too impudent. I'm going to report this to the Vice-Chancellor and expel you from the academy. Instructor, don't be too angry. I'm serious. You really are sick. You need to be treated. She sighed and looked at the furious instructor spitting saliva. She couldn't help but take a step back. At this moment, the other instructors noticed that the bad-tempered instructor's Peak Foundation establishment's suppressive aura was attacking Fengjiu. That suppressive aura almost enveloped the youth's body, but his expression didn't change at all. His expression was the same as before, and his eyes were smiling. Seeing this, the others were slightly startled. Some were surprised, and some were puzzled. Normally, Foundation establishment cultivators were a level higher than great spiritual masters. However, this level was often a barrier that many cultivators couldn't cross. The difference in strength and suppressive aura of a Foundation establishment cultivator was different. It was absolutely possible for a Foundation establishment cultivator to crush a great spiritual master. The suppressive aura of a Foundation establishment cultivator could also shock a great spiritual master to the spot, making the blood in their body boil and unable to speak. However, when it came to Fengjiu, why was it like this? Fengjiu, don't mess around. Instructor Lu said in a low voice, thinking that he was joking with the instructor. Hearing this, Fengjiu shrugged. All right. It's fine if you don't believe me. However, judging from the teacher's condition, he will definitely collapse within 3 days. You. The instructor was so angry that he started panting. If the two instructors beside him hadn't held him back, he would have rushed forward to teach Fengjiu a lesson. Old Lu, don't bicker with a child. Come, come, come. Sit down and drink some water. I'll ask him about this. Teacher Lu pulled the angry director Lu to the side and sat down. Then, he walked over to Fengjiu and Yi Jing. What do you two think of this matter? Do you have any plans? If someone is trying to defame you, then who is it? Do you have any evidence? Hearing Director Lu's words, the two of them looked at each other. Then, Fengjiu smiled and said, Director Lu, leave this to us. I will personally find the culprit. Seeing him say this, it was obvious that he had a plan in mind, so she asked, how long will it take? 1 day is enough, she said with a faint smile on her lips. All right then, I'll give you 1 day. You can leave now. If this matter isn't handled well, the two of you. He didn't continue, only reminding them. Yes, we know. Chapter 699. Before the instructor could get angry, she had already walked out with Yi Jing. When they were outside, they could still hear the other instructors comforting Instructor Lu. Why did you say that Instructor Lu is sick? Is he really sick? Yi Jing looked at her suspiciously. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but smile. She said helplessly, yes, he really is sick. But he didn't believe me. She shook her head and didn't say anything else. She said, after you go back, it's best to keep an eye on that little white flower. I'll go look for you later. Hearing this, Yi Jing was startled. Aren't we going to look for her now? No rush, no rush. We have 1 day. I have to go back and prepare some things. She smiled. Her eyes flashed with a cold light. All right then. See you later. She said and left first. After she left, Fengjiu sat on Flying Feather and headed to the pill department's cave residence. On the other side, when Bai Ruofei found out that Fengjiu and Yi Jing were taken to the teaching room, her heart was in her mouth. She was excited and nervous. What would happen to them? Would they be expelled from the academy? Now that everyone in the academy saw them, they would definitely point fingers at them. Their reputations would be ruined. However, she wasn't lying. She clearly saw Fengjiu pounce on Yi Jing in the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. A withered flower still dares to put on a noble and virtuous appearance every day. Yi Jing, let's see how you can act noble and virtuous this time. She said hatefully. Her pretty face was distorted by the jealousy and hatred on her face, making her look exceptionally ugly. However, at this moment, Yi Jing's voice came from outside. Ruofei, are you there? When she heard this voice, she was shocked. She stood up in a panic and paused for a moment before walking out. She asked, Jing. Is that you? Why are you here? As she spoke, she saw the white figure walking in from outside. Immediately, she revealed a sweet smile and went up to her. Jing, you're finally willing to come and find me. You've been ignoring me for a while, and I don't even have someone to talk to. Yi Jing walked in and looked at the woman with a sweet smile. Her eyes moved slightly. What have you been busy with recently? Didn't you go out for a walk? You're ignoring me. I've been cultivating recently and haven't gone out much. What's wrong? Her heart was slightly raised and her palms were soaked with sweat. Not really. It's just that I don't know what's going on recently. Rumors about me and Fengjiu have been spreading around the academy. As she spoke, she sat down at the table. Seeing that she was the only one in the courtyard, she asked, where are the people who live with you? He's not here. In the academy, only heaven rank students could have their own small courtyard. Those below heaven rank would have a few people living in a small courtyard. They went out and haven't returned yet. As she spoke, she poured her a cup of tea and asked carefully, Jing, why did you think of looking for me? Can't I come to look for you? No, no, that's not what I meant. She hurriedly said. Looking at this woman with a gentle voice and an indifferent expression, she suddenly felt uncertain. She couldn't have suspected that she was the one who did those things outside, right? Just as she was thinking, she heard her say, I came to look for you to ask, do you know who started the rumors outside? Chapter 700. What rumor? Yi Jing stared at her and did not answer. After a long time, she revealed a gentle smile, that's right, how would you know when you're cultivating? Forget it, let's not talk about that. Today, I'll come over to sit here and chat with you. Bai Ruofei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing her close her eyes and drink tea, she began to talk about other things and chatted with her, on the other side, in Fengzhou's cave. As soon as she returned, she entered the cave and opened the pill furnace to begin refining. Among the pill formulas that her master left for her, there was a medicinal pill called the Truth Pill. It was a Tier 2 medicinal pill. With her current alchemy cultivation, wanting to refine a Tier 2 Truth Pill really wasn't a problem. The owner of the cave was refining pills, while the three beasts outside were lying side by side and looking at the cave. They didn't go in to disturb him. Since that day, they didn't steal spirit ginseng or anything else, because the pills that their owner refined for them were even better. Eating one pill could last them half a month, and it could also strengthen the aura in their bodies. It was much better than eating spirit ginseng raw. Because the spirit ginseng was no longer stolen from the medicine peak, the matter was gradually put aside and left unsettled. Inside the alchemy room, Feng Jiu added the datura flower, hemp 3-duan, and other herbs according to the pill recipe and controlled the refinement with her life flame source. About an hour later, a medicinal fragrance filled the air, and even she couldn't help but feel her mind shake when she smelled it. It's worthy of being called the Truth Pill. Just a mere medicinal fragrance can make people lose their guard. If this thing were to be auctioned, there would be many people who would want it, right? She whispered softly. Recently, she had not put any new medicines into the market, but she could send this pill to the black market to be auctioned. As she thought about it, she did not get distracted. Seeing that the pill was about to be completed, she immediately turned her hand and added more fire. Injecting her spiritual aura, she finally patted the furnace and took out the pill inside. Second level Truth Pill, 4 pill veins. Not bad, but I don't know how effective it is. She whispered softly, looking at the 3 truth pills in her hand. She thought that she should find someone to test the effects of this pill first. But, who should she test it on? She muttered to herself as she walked out of the immortal's cave. She held the 3 pills in her hand and looked at them. Who should she use to test the pills? Although it was refined according to that pill formula, she didn't know where her master got those pill formulas from. She had refined some of the pill formulas in the past, and she could refine strange pills according to them. Therefore, even if she knew that some of the pills she refined weren't poisonous, she still had to try it before she could be at ease. Because the smell of the 3 pills in her hand was too overwhelming, the 3 beasts that were lying together unexpectedly stood up at the same time when they smelled the scent of the pills in her hand, drooling as they stared at the pills in her hand. Seeing this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but laugh. These aren't for you to eat. These 3 are truth pills, used to make people speak the truth. They should be useless to beasts. She sat down on the grass, took out a bottle, and was just about to put the 3 medicinal pills into it. Unexpectedly, a large tongue suddenly rolled out, and it actually swept away the last medicinal pill in her hand. She was stunned for a moment, and she couldn't help but glare at Senior White. Old Bai. You greedy ghost. That's a truth pill. It's not for beasts to eat, it's for humans to eat. Moreover, it hasn't been tested yet. If anything happens to you after eating it, don't say that I didn't warn you. Chapter 701. She saw Lao Bai burp, and his eyes rolled back. His legs went soft as he lay on the grass. His tongue rolled up from the horse's mouth, and his body began to twitch slightly. Seeing this, Fengjiu was shocked. Lao Bai. Lao Bai, how are you? That's impossible. I've tested this pill, it's not poisonous. Even if a beast ate it, it shouldn't be poisoned. Seeing Lao Bai like this, she was worried. Just as she was about to take out an antidote pill from her space and feed it to him, she heard Lao Bai, whose eyes had rolled back, suddenly show an intoxicated expression. He unexpectedly stuck out his tongue and licked her face. Just as she was about to scold him, she heard a voice that made her body stiffen. She was stunned. Master is so beautiful, so beautiful. Master is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I like Master the most. I even peeked at Master bathing. Master's figure is so good. Master. Hearing Lao Bai chattering away with an intoxicated expression, the corner of Fengjiu's mouth twitched, and a few black lines appeared on her forehead. Who could tell her why the truth pill she refined would allow a beast that wasn't a divine beast to speak human language? Also, peeking at her bathing. Lao Bai, this fellow, was itching for a beating. The cloud-swallowing beast was stunned as well. After all, only divine beasts could speak the human language. Beasts below the level of divine beasts could only communicate with their masters by contracting with them. Although they didn't know what kind of beast White was and its strength was quite formidable, it had always been unable to speak the human language. How could it speak the human language after taking a pill? However, peeking at Master bathing, it was really bold. It even said that Master's figure was so good. TSK, if that terrifying man knew, he would definitely break its head. Only the big black bear sat there in a daze. Although divine beasts had developed intelligence, it expressed that its intelligence was limited and it couldn't understand Lao Bai, who wasn't even a divine beast, speaking human language. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Old White, who had been blabbering on and on about all the scoundrels he had done in the past, finally stopped and licked his lips. He looked anxiously at his master, who had a dark expression on her face, and immediately lowered his head and laid down in front of her. He obediently shut his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else, but his ponytail shook excitedly. Lao Bai, are you done? Do you want to continue? Fengjiu pinched its ear and stared at it with a fake smile. Ouch! Ouch, ouch, ouch! Master, be gentle. Lao Bai immediately gasped and raised its head. When Fengjiu heard that it could still speak after the effects of the drug wore off, she was also stunned. She couldn't help but loosen her grip on its ear. You can still speak. God, wasn't that the truth pill? Lao Bai grinned excitedly and revealed a row of horse teeth. It said excitedly, Master, aren't you happy that I can speak? I'm very happy. I, Lao Bai, can finally speak human language. This is a wonderful thing that I've been looking forward to for a long time. As expected, following Master is the best thing that I, Lao Bai, have done. Master, do you have any other pills? If you have one more, maybe I can turn into a human. Turn into your head. She directly slapped its head and glared at it. She said to Tun Yun, look after it. Don't let it run around and cause trouble. She had to go back and study it. What was wrong with the truth pill? Just as she was about to walk into the cave, a voice came from behind her, causing her to stumble and almost fall. Chapter 702. Fengjiu turned around and glared at it. Shut your mouth. You're not allowed to speak human language in front of others. Otherwise, I'll make sure you'll never be able to make a sound. A beast that was not a divine beast could speak human language. If others knew, how much trouble would it cause? When Lao Bai heard this, it immediately shut its mouth like a human and obediently lay back on the grass. Its master was someone who did what she said. It did not dare to challenge her patience. When Fengjiu entered the cave, Tun Yun and the big black bear were sitting outside. The two beasts stared at Lao Bai with their 4 eyes. When Lao Bai saw this, it raised its chin proudly and glared at Tun Yun. What? Were you frightened by your godfather Ma? I told you long ago that your godfather Ma is not an ordinary beast. How about it? Did you see that? Humph, I can speak human language even though I'm not a divine beast. How can I be like you? Tun Yun glanced at it. What are you so proud of? Didn't Master say it? If you dare to speak human language in front of others, I'll make sure you'll never be able to make a sound. Don't think that Master was just saying it. If the fact that you can speak human language even though you're not a divine beast spreads, it will only cause trouble for Master. So you better keep your mouth shut. Lao Bai did not talk back. After all, its intelligence was not low. Although it was a little lecherous, it still knew this kind of thing. In the cave's pill room, Fengjiu looked at the remaining 2 pills. Whether it was the color or the medicine used, there was no mistake. But how did it make the beast speak? Although she was puzzled, she was certain that the pill formula was indeed the formula for the truth pill. Lao Bai had eaten that pill and spat out all its secrets. There was no doubt about this. There must be something wrong. Where is it? She closed her eyes and pondered. In her mind, she recalled the process and steps of refining the pill. She recalled the medicinal properties and effects of each medicine. Suddenly, a light flashed in her mind. I used too much spiritual herbs of speech. Thus, she opened the furnace again and refined another batch of pills. This time, it was the same formula, but she adjusted the dosage. After about 4 hours, another batch of pills came out of the furnace. This time, she took out 3 pills. However, only 2 of them were successful. The last one was a poison pill. She took out the 2 pills from before and compared them. The color and size were exactly the same. The only difference was that if she looked carefully, she could smell that the medicinal smell was slightly fainter. It should be right this time. As she spoke, she was only a few words, of the 3 to see the 3 beasts outside, 2. 2. Of 4 2. Of course it's to protect Master. Lao Bai said with great enthusiasm. Of you, to you. 2 2. 2 2. If you want to go, you go. I'm not going. Little Black, are you going? Lao Bai looked at the big black bear and asked. The big black bear scratched its head. It looked at Lao Bai and then at Tun Yun. Finally, it shook its head. It did not dare to go. Seeing this, Lao Bai snorted and lay back down listlessly. Chapter 703. Phone, Fengjiu. What are you doing here? Seeing him, Bai Ruofei couldn't help but stand up. Her originally nervous expression became even more nervous. I'm here to look for Yi Jing. Her lips slightly curled as she looked at Yi Jing. I have something to discuss with you. Hearing this, Yi Jing stood up and bid farewell to Bai Ruofei before walking towards Fengjiu. Following her to a secluded place, she asked, aren't we going to take her to the teaching area? No need, no need. I have a better way to deal with her. Her eyes narrowed with a smile as she hooked her finger at Bai Ruofei, indicating for her to come closer. Seeing this, Yi Jing moved closer and lowered her ear to listen to Fengjiu's whispers. Nodding her head, she said, okay, I got it. I'll go now. Saying this, she turned around and left. Not long after, Fengjiu went to Bai Ruofei's courtyard and directly sealed her acupoints before carrying her away. At the entrance of the spiritual academy, Bai Ruofei's hands were tied together as she hung between the stone pillars. Her feet were suspended nearly a meter above the ground. She was unconscious and swaying there. The weight of her body was supported by the ropes that bound her hands. As a result, her hands were strangled and bleeding. Isn't that the Bai Ruofei who always follows Yi Jing? Why is she being hung up here? It's Bai Ruofei. Why is she unconscious? Who hung her here? Did she offend someone? More and more students from the surrounding spiritual academies started to gather as they pointed at Bai Ruofei, who was being hung up. However, no one had any thoughts of untying her. Not far away, seeing that there were already quite a number of students gathered around, Feng Jiu curled his lips. Picking up a small stone, he flicked his hand and unsealed her acupoint. When the acupoint was unsealed, Bai Ruofei let out a muffled groan as the pill that Feng Jiu had placed in her mouth slid down her throat before she could react. Hiss. When she regained consciousness, the pain in her hands made her suck in a breath of cold air. She struggled to untie herself, but found herself suspended in the air. Her hands were tied tightly, and she couldn't untie herself. She didn't know what was going on, but she saw that there were many students surrounding her. Thus, she called for help. Who's going to let me down? Please help me, untie me, and let me down. Aren't you the one who always follows senior sister Yi Jing? Why are you hanging here? Did you offend someone? A student raised his voice and asked. He walked forward, wanting to untie her. However, when he heard the following words, he couldn't help but freeze. He looked at the white-clothed woman who was hanging in the air with astonishment. Yi Jing. Yes, I'm good sisters. Who's good sisters? That slut's acting all day long. As soon as the voice came out, Bai Ruofei panicked and her face instantly paled. However, for some reason, she seemed to have a stomach full of words that she wanted to say. Even if she wanted to, she couldn't control it. Even if she wanted to shut her mouth, she still couldn't stop herself from speaking. Chapter 704. The crowd below was dumbfounded as they watched Bai Ruofei continue to talk about secret matters. Listening to how she had framed Yi Jing and how she had started a rumor, the students of the spiritual academies sucked in a mouthful of cold air as a single sentence surfaced in their minds. A woman's heart is the most poisonous. Yi Jing had treated her like a sister, yet she had framed her out of jealousy and ruined her reputation. This woman, her heart was simply too black. Not far away, Feng Jiu rubbed his chin. Pretty boy. Does she look like a pretty boy? That's simply nonsense. He was clearly a handsome man who was loved by everyone. Squinting her eyes, she glanced at the teachers and Yi Jing not far away. It seemed that she didn't need to explain anymore. Thus, she turned around and quietly left. On her way back, she went to the ovens to get some food. After the effects of the medicine wore off, Bai Ruofei's face turned pale as she looked at the condemning gazes of the people below. Listening to the curses and the angry expressions of the teachers, her heart sank. She knew that she was finished. Blood rushed to her head as her vision turned black. Unable to bear the following scene, she fainted. Too hateful. How could the academy have such a student? Too hateful. The hot-tempered instructor Lu cursed as he ordered the students around him, take her down and escort her to the dean's office for punishment. Yi Jing. Yi Jing. When the teachers thought of calling Yi Jing over to inquire about the reason, they noticed that the girl who had been by their side just now had disappeared. Seeing this, they didn't pay much attention to it and only let the students bring Bai Ruofei back to await her punishment. In the main peak, she spoke of the matter herself. The Vice Academy head looked at Instructor Lu in astonishment and asked, no one forced him to speak? Yes, it's like this. When we rushed over, the student was hung on a stone pillar at the entrance of the academy. Her expression was one of panic and fear. She wanted to shut her mouth several times, but she couldn't stop herself from speaking. This student has already been escorted to the dean's office for punishment. Expel him from the academy and blacklist him, never to be admitted again. The vice headmaster waved his hand, indicating for Director Lu to withdraw. Hearing this, Guide Lu acknowledged and retreated. Before he left, he could not help but raise his head to look at the man in white. This person was said to be Elder Tianji's disciple, young Master Mo Chen. Why would you tell the truth yourself? No one would do such a thing, right? Could it be that he's being controlled by someone? The vice-chancellor stroked his beard thoughtfully. Mo Chen picked up the teacup and gently scraped the tea. Looking at the tea leaves floating in the tea, his eyes flickered and he said calmly, "Truth pill." What? The vice president turned to look at him. In this world, there used to be a type of pill called the truth pill. As long as one consumes it, one will be able to proactively speak the truth. However, this pill formula has been lost for many years. Truth pill. The vice president was slightly startled. With a strange expression, he asked, "How could our academy have such a pill? What's more, the pill formula has been lost for a long time." However, as soon as his voice fell, he seemed to have thought of something and his expression became even more strange. This matter, could it be done by Fengjiu? However, he's a student who just entered the alchemy department. Even if he has the pill formula, he shouldn't be able to refine the truth pill, right? Chapter 705. Hearing this, the vice president stroked his beard and narrowed his eyes. If that's really the case, then that's good. He smiled. Our Star Cloud Academy has almost been forgotten by people, especially in the exchange competition with 6th class academies and above. We don't even have a student who can participate in the competition. If he really is proficient in the way of alchemy, even if he can't reach foundation establishment in the future, he won't be looked down upon if he has achievements in alchemy. The next morning, when Fengjiu was still sleeping in, Guan Shilin's voice came from outside the cave. Xiaojiu. Xiaojiu. He was wearing the dark blue student uniform of the Xian Academy. His posture was tall and sturdy, and he was in high spirits. His eyes were sharp and hidden, and his whole body emitted the aura of a strong cultivator. In less than 3 months, he had broken through the 9th floor of the Xian Tower, and his strength had increased greatly. Now, he was already a martial ancestor realm cultivator. Among the students of the Xian Academy, there were few who could compare to him. Guan Shilin's name had spread throughout the Xian Academy in less than a day after he came out of the Xian Tower. As a new student, he had become the #1 student of the Xian Academy in just a few months. He called out a few times, but didn't hear any movement. She must have fallen asleep. He smiled and sat down under a tree. He looked at the big black bear guarding the cave and said with a smile, "You're the sacred beast that Xiaojiu brought back from the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range. I didn't expect that she would keep such a big guy." "Ao." Little Black roared but didn't attack him. He just squatted and stared at him vigilantly. "No need to roar. You can't scare me. I'm your master's older brother, understand?" Guan Shilin said with a smile. He casually glanced and saw Lao Bai emerge from the grass not far away. "Hey! Guan, you're here." When Lao Bai saw Guan Shilin, he couldn't help but excitedly greet him. He wagged his tail and trotted over, proud and proud. "Guan, I, Lao Bai, can speak now. Are you scared?" "Ha ha 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 ha." When he heard Lao Bai speak in human language and even called him Guan, he felt a few black lines appear on his forehead, and his expression became strange. Seeing it walk closer, he sized it up and asked, "Old White, you're still the same. You're not a divine beast, so how can you speak?" "Why can't I speak? I, Old White, am not an ordinary horse. In addition, I have an extraordinary master. It's only a matter of time before I speak human language." Its voice couldn't hide its pride. If it had come from a human's mouth, it wouldn't have been strange. However, it had come from the horse's mouth. Coupled with its proud little eyes, no matter how one looked at it, the corner of one's mouth twitched. It was simply inconceivable. "Brother? You came out of the profound tower? Fengjiu's sleepy voice sounded. Guan Xilin looked over and saw her walking out while yawning. Her eyes were half closed, and she looked like she hadn't woken up yet. He smiled and said, I came out last night. I heard about what happened to you at the academy recently, so I came to find you this morning. You really attract attention wherever you go. You even hid in this almost abandoned alchemy institution, but you still managed to cause so much trouble. You can't blame me. It's them who came to find trouble with me. Chapter 706. Guan Xilin smiled and nodded, not bad. I advanced to martial ancestor realm in the profound tower. In fact, when I was training outside with the mercenary group for a few months, whether it was my speed, martial skills, or reaction time, they were all constantly improving. I just lacked an opportunity to advance. This time, the profound tower just happened to help me break through to martial ancestor realm so quickly. What exactly is the profound tower? How is it inside? Are there many people inside? She asked curiously. She had only heard that the profound tower was a good place for the students of the profound academy to improve their own strength. She had been in the academy for so long, but she had never seen it. There aren't many people inside. Those who enter are all martial grand masters. There are 9 floors inside, and the higher you go, the harder it is to pass. Some students are trapped on the 3rd or 4th floor and can't go any further. Aside from martial skills, it can also quickly increase a student's speed and profound chi. The most mysterious is the 9th floor. The 9th floor of the profound tower will only change according to each person who enters. When I went in, I encountered an illusion and it took me half a month to get out of it. It's that powerful. She touched her chin and her eyes moved slightly. I think you should find time to go to the profound tower and try it out. As he spoke, he told her about some of the things he encountered while training outside. Finally, he asked, You haven't built your foundation yet? I remember that you've been stuck at Great Spirit Master for a long time. Not yet. Yesterday, I wanted to take a mission and go out for a walk. Who knew that I would encounter that little white flower, so I was delayed. The academy can't just let people out casually, and there's no food. Recently, I've been craving for food. Hearing this, Guan Xilin laughed. The academy doesn't have that, but I heard that you've been to the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range. You can go there to cultivate. There are wild boars there, you can catch them and roast them. I've been there. After all, it's only a 6th rank country. The highest level of beast is only a sacred beast. I haven't even seen the divine beast spicy soup. It's not difficult for me, so I'll be bored there. She waved her hand. She saw Old White, who was originally wandering around, twist its butt and tail as it excitedly ran not far away. Hey! Beauty Yi Jing, you're getting more and more beautiful. Fengjiu and Guan Xilin's mouths twitched. Guan Xilin looked at Lao Bai, then at Fengjiu, and asked, What's wrong with Lao Bai? How come you can talk? Such a lecherous horse could drool at beauties even without opening its mouth. What would happen if it opened its mouth? He could even imagine that if Xiao Jiu rode it on the streets in the future, would it whistle and flirt with the girls on the street? Fengjiu looked at Yi Jing, who was frozen in place, and said helplessly, It became like this yesterday after eating the mutated true word pill that I just refined. This Lao Bai, I clearly told it not to open its mouth in front of others to avoid scaring them. But it seems that it forgot all about it when it saw a beauty. As she spoke, she nudged him with her elbow and revealed an expectant smile, Brother, let me tell you, this Yi Jing is a good person. She's the #1 beauty in the academy. Her character is good, and her cultivation is also good. I think she's quite pleasing to the eye, so I wanted to introduce her to you last time. Oh right, this girl is quite smart, she even knows that I'm a woman disguised as a man. Chapter 707. Not bad. I was thinking. Before she could finish her sentence, Yi Jing walked over with a stunned expression. As she walked, she turned her head to look at Lao Bai, who was following beside her like a playboy. Fengjiu, what's wrong with Lao Bai? Yi Jing walked up to Yi Jing. When she came back to her senses, she noticed that there was another man around. She nodded her head slightly and smiled faintly. Yi Jing, you're here. Just in time. Come, sit. Fengjiu reached out and pulled her to sit on the grass. He smiled and introduced the two of them. Yi Jing, this is my brother, Guan Shilin. Brother, this is Yi Jing, my friend, the #1 beauty in the school. Guan Shilin nodded at her and smiled, nice to meet you. Yi Jing was slightly startled. Seeing the smile on the young man's face, her heart skipped a beat. Her face blushed slightly. She tried her best to calm herself down before returning a gentle smile. I often hear Fengjiu talk about you. I'm really surprised to meet you in person today. Surprised? You're different from what I imagined. She lowered her eyes slightly and smiled to hide the nervousness in her heart. She was indeed surprised. She thought that Fengjiu's brother would be the gentle and refined type. She never thought that he would be such an iron-blooded man. Although it was her first time meeting him, she had to admit that the man in front of her gave her a very strange feeling. Fengjiu looked at the two of them. Her eyes moved and she stood up with a smile. Well, I just woke up and haven't washed up yet. You two go ahead and chat. I'll come back later. As she spoke, she took Lao Bai, who was lying beside Yi Jing, away to avoid disturbing the two of them. Hey, Fengjiu. Yi Jing saw her leave and could not help but feel even more nervous. She remembered that she said she would introduce her to her brother. Did she tell her brother? Now that they were alone, she was at a loss for what to do as she had never encountered such a situation before. Seeing her nervousness, Guan Shilin was startled. He touched his chin and asked in confusion, I shaved before coming out. Do I still look scary now? No. She raised her head in a daze, and after meeting his smiling gaze, she hurriedly looked away. Seeing this, Guan Shilin found it strange but did not take it to heart. Instead, he smiled and asked, Are you from Qingtang? Or from another country? As the conversation progressed, Yi Jing gradually regained her usual calmness and gentleness. She realized that Guan Shilin was quite knowledgeable. Listening to him talk about his experience with the mercenary group, the two of them gradually started chatting. When Fengjiu saw this, he couldn't help but smile. She knew it. The two of them were a perfect match. It was good that they were chatting. She would take a nap before coming out. As he thought about it, he yawned and went back to his room to rest. It wasn't until noon that the two of them remembered that Tong Jiu had disappeared for half a day. Guan Shilin smiled and stood up. Yi Jing, sit here for a while. I'll call Xiaojiu and we'll go to the stream on the other side of the mountain to eat grilled fish. All right. She nodded in response and watched as he walked towards the Immortal's cave without the enchantment. After about half an hour, Fengjiu and Guan Shilin finished washing up and walked out together. When she heard that they were going to the stream to catch fish, she was so excited that all her sleepiness disappeared without a trace. Chapter 708. In the evening, the three of them, who had been playing for almost a day, left at the fork in the road. Just as Fengjiu was leading the three beasts to the cave, she saw a heaven-rank student wearing a spiritual academy uniform standing in front of her with his back facing her. Even though she was close to the three beasts, he had no intention of giving way. Seeing this, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Excuse me. At this time, the man with his back facing her turned around. When their eyes met, a dark light flashed in their eyes. Fengjiu rode on White's back and sized up the person in front of him. The uniform couldn't hide the sharp aura on his body, as well as the imposing manner of a superior. This person, even if he was a student of the academy, should be one of the top 3 heaven's prides. Not only did he have an outstanding appearance, he also had extraordinary strength and a superior background. This person was undoubtedly a heaven's pride. In the Academy of Stars and Clouds, other than Nietang, there was only one other person who could have such an aura, the crown prince of a 6th-ranked country, Ouyang Xiu. Ouyang Xiu was the 2nd foundation establishment student in a 6-star academy. His strength was at the middle foundation establishment stage. Because Nietang was at the late foundation establishment stage, he had always been suppressed by Nietang and could only be ranked 2nd among the top 10 heaven's prides. To put it bluntly, he would always be 2nd place. While Fengjiu was sizing up Ouyang Xiu was also sizing up the youth on the white horse. He was dressed in an inconspicuous academy robe, but it couldn't conceal his breathtaking elegance. The young man's immortal-like appearance was destined to attract attention wherever he went. However, what attracted his attention even more was the young man's temperament and his mysterious and bottomless clear eyes. He was obviously a 16-year-old youth, wearing an unremarkable uniform, but it couldn't hide his elegance. He sat on the white horse, his whole body emitting a lazy aura. His whole person seemed so indifferent, like a hedonistic son of a rich family. However, when the youth raised his eyes, those bottomless and mysterious eyes gave off a hidden pressure. With just a glance, it made his heart tremble. Was this young man named Fengjiu really from a 9th-ranked country? This kind of figure, this kind of appearance, this kind of dazzling magnificence, how could he be an ordinary person? Fengjiu. His voice rang out, low and stern. Ouyang Xiu. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. Ouyang Xiu's eyes narrowed. I've long heard of you. Same here. Fengjiu's lips curled into a faint smile. He looked deeply at the young man on the horse, wanting to see through him. So, he said, 3 days later, I will wait for you on the storm platform. Without waiting for Fengjiu to reply, he turned and left. In his opinion, someone like Fengjiu would definitely come once he issued a challenge. But he still didn't understand Fengjiu, and also underestimated Fengjiu. He didn't know that Fengjiu only listened to him, and didn't even take it to heart. Looking at the departing figure, Fengjiu's smile deepened. He patted White's head and said to the big black bear beside him, Little Black, let's go. 1 man and 3 beasts walked towards the cave residence. Chapter 709. The next morning. Xiaojiu. Xiaojiu. After hearing the news, Guan Shilin came over early with Yi Jing. The 2 of them had met on the road. Lao Bai walked over with an elegant horse stance and stood beside Yi Jing. He said to the 2 of them, Master went to bed very late last night. She won't get up until noon today. She also soundproofed her room. She won't be able to hear you no matter how loudly you call her. We heard that Ouyang Xiu challenged Xiaojiu. Where did you meet him yesterday? Guan Shilin asked with a slight frown. On the way back, Master said that if you came, you should go back. Don't worry, she didn't intend to accept the challenge. Lao Bai took a deep breath and smelled Yi Jing's pleasant scent. Yes, a woman smells good. Ouyang Xiu is a cultivator in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. His cultivation is the best among his peers. Among all the students in the academy, only Nietang can suppress him. If Fengjiu fights with him, I'm afraid. Yi Jing was a little worried. She felt that this matter might have been caused by her, so she felt uneasy. Guan Shilin was not worried that Fengjiu would not be a match for Ouyang Xiu, because he knew her strength very well. Not to mention the students in the academy, even some of the teachers were no match for her. He just felt that it would not be a good thing for her to be constantly challenged here. It would definitely hinder her cultivation. If everyone came to challenge her, and anyone could challenge her, then how would she have so much time to cultivate and do her own things? You should go back. Master is fine here. Don't worry. Lao Bai took a deep breath as he spoke, his face full of intoxication. Yi Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Lao Bai, can you not be so lecherous? He stood beside her and took a deep breath. Was she so pleasant to smell? No, I like beautiful women, especially beautiful women with a beautiful heart. Beauty Yi Jing, I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. You really smell good. Full of feminine fragrance. No, my legs are weak. Lao Bai had an intoxicated look on his face. As he spoke, he even lay down and pretended that his legs were weak. That despicable appearance and perverted expression made it hard for people to hate him even if they wanted to. Guan Shilin glared at Lao Bai and was speechless. Lao Bai, where did you learn to be so lecherous? Xiao Jiu wasn't a pervert either. Could it be your previous master? My previous master was an idiot, but he was also a good person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given me to my Xiao Jiu. Its mouth opened and closed as it spoke smoothly. As soon as it said, Xiao Jiu, its eyes suddenly lit up, ah. From now on, I'll call you Xiao Jiu. It sounds really nice. Seeing this, the two of them helplessly shook their heads and smiled at each other. However, at this moment, the spiritual academy was in chaos. When Teacher Lu was giving a lecture to the students of the spiritual academy, he had a bad temper and scolded a student who was not doing well and was absent-minded, causing him to fall unconscious. When the students sent the teacher to the teaching office in a panic, Teacher Lu's body had already stiffened and he had lost consciousness. When the pharmacists of the medicinal academy and the academy's doctors received the news, they rushed to the teaching office and filled up a room. Chapter 7:10. When Director Lu saw the two of them, he hurriedly bowed and said, "It's like this. The students of the spiritual academy sent Director Lu here. They said that one of the students didn't learn how to use spiritual energy properly and was absent-minded. In the end, he was scolded by Director Lu. At that time, Director Lu was very angry and collapsed after a few words. He paused for a moment before continuing, I asked the pharmacists and doctors to check on him. They said that it was caused by the liver, but it was discovered too late. This caused his temper to become irritable and his blood to rush to his brain. It shouldn't be difficult to treat his internal organs, but now that the complications have flared up, it won't be easy to treat. It's that serious." The dean frowned and looked at Director Lu, who was lying motionless on the bed. Noticing the stiffness of his body, he asked, "Why do I feel like there's something wrong with his body?" The pharmacists couldn't find the cause, but the doctors said that it was his brain that caused his body to become paralyzed. However, our academy's doctors also said that there was no way to treat him. We don't know what to do now. Director Lu's face was filled with worry and anxiety. Although Director Lu's temper wasn't very good, he was extremely serious about teaching. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been registered as a teacher in Nebula. Moreover, he had taught for more than 10 years in Nebula. Now that they saw him lying motionless on the bed without any consciousness, it made them feel uncomfortable. When the dean and vice dean heard this, their expressions turned grave. However, the two of them did not know anything about medicine and could not help much. Even though they had a few life-saving pills in their collection, those pills could only treat internal injuries. They had never encountered a problem with the body's liver function that affected the brain. How about this? Old Guan, go ask young Master Mo Chen to come take a look. He's proficient in pills, perhaps he can see if there are any pills that Director Lu can use. The dean turned to the vice dean and ordered. Okay, I'll go ask him now. The vice dean said and hurried out of the teaching office, heading towards Mo Chen's courtyard. On the bed in the teaching office, the pharmacists and two doctors were discussing Director Lu's condition. Some said that they might have to go out and invite a doctor with better medical skills to treat Director Lu, while others said that they would have to go to a fifth-ranked country to find one. Everyone was talking until they saw the vice director bring the white-clothed man to the teaching office. Only then did they all quiet down. Young Master Mo Chen, to these teachers and doctors, they had all heard of his name. His teacher was Mr. Tianji, and he was the only disciple of Mr. Tianji. It was said that he was proficient in alchemy, he could even concoct sixth-level pills. He was a rare genius in alchemy. Everyone stepped aside to let the vice president and Mo Chen enter. Inside, Mo Chen took Director Lu's pulse and checked his body. After a few breaths, he stood up and shook his head at the dean and vice president. He's not injured, he's sick. Pills can treat injuries, but to treat an illness, you have to find the root of the problem. I can't do anything about his situation. Even you can't do anything about it? The vice president's heart sank. Chapter 7:11. His words made everyone's hearts sink. Looking at the aura of death that enveloped Director Lu, the atmosphere in the office became heavy. Everyone was silent, not knowing what to say. Although Director Lu wasn't dead yet, he wasn't far from it. The aura of death on his body could be seen by all the cultivators present. His spiritual power was gradually weakening, like a flame drenched in rain, gradually becoming smaller and smaller. There were many cultivators in this world, so there were alchemists and pharmacists. However, there were very few doctors. In the eyes of cultivators, doctors were far less important than alchemists and pharmacists. This was because most doctors could only treat mortals. Cultivators rarely had any problems with their bodies. It was also because of this that there were even fewer doctors who were respected and trusted in the medical field. After all, true medical experts were extremely rare. At the very least, it was impossible for them to appear in a sixth-tier country like theirs. I wonder if you've heard of the ghost doctor? A doctor suddenly asked, looking at the crowd. If we can find the ghost doctor, I think Director Lu can be saved. However, the ghost doctor's whereabouts are mysterious. It's very difficult to find him. Plus, we only have 6 hours. Even if we can find him, it's too late. At the end, he sighed, shook his head, and walked out. It was as if he didn't say anything. How could they possibly find the ghost doctor in 6 hours? As far as he was concerned, Director Lu was beyond saving. If he was injured, cultivators like them might be able to save him with some life-saving elixirs and medicines. However, this illness was really going to take his life. It can be said that almost everyone in Qingting knows of the ghost doctor's name, but only a few people have seen him before. However, he has a good relationship with the people from the black market. He has appeared in Qingting Kingdom before, so perhaps, the people from the black market know where he is now. The dean thought for a while, then said to the vice dean, Elder Guan, go take my order and ask the black market for help. This. Will it work? Even we have to be polite to the black market. I'm worried that even if they know, they won't reveal it. No matter what, we still have to go. Go. The head of the black market is on good terms with me. If he knows the whereabouts of the ghost doctor, he should be willing to help. The dean waved his hand, indicating for him to hurry. All right, I'll make a trip there. Elder Guan took the dean's identity token and hurried to the black market. Mo Chen, is there any way to prolong his life? Even if it's just for a day or a few hours, it's fine. The dean looked at Director Lu who was lying on the bed and sighed. I personally recruited this old Lu. He has been teaching students in Nebula for more than 10 years. He has always been a strict and serious instructor. I really don't want him to be like this. I can use my spiritual power to seal the life force in his body, stopping all the blood vessels and meridians in his body from circulating, causing him to fall into a state of suspended animation. However, it can only last for 4 hours. After 4 hours, he will still only have 6 hours left. Mo Chen said indifferently. His gaze swept over Director Lu, who was lying on the bed. To him, Director Lu was just a stranger. If it wasn't for the headmaster's repeated requests, he definitely wouldn't have opened his mouth. Chapter 7:12. Hearing this, Mo Chen didn't say anything else and walked up to the bedside. He raised his hand and a wave of spiritual energy visible to the naked eye surged. In the next moment, he quickly sealed several major acupuncture points on Instructor Lu's body. At that moment, the aura on Instructor Lu's body suddenly disappeared, as if he had died. He didn't even breathe. This scene caused the hearts of the surrounding instructors to freeze. Just as they were about to open their mouths to ask what had happened, they saw young Master Mo Chen wave his sleeves and turn to leave. At the same time, he left behind an indifferent sentence. Before that, don't touch him. Everyone watched as his figure disappeared from the teaching area. They couldn't help but look at the dean. The dean stepped forward to take a look, and his wise eyes moved slightly. Using spiritual energy to seal all the major acupuncture points on his body, other than having an extremely accurate knowledge of the acupuncture points, one also needed to have a strong spiritual energy. Just these 4 hours of fake death had consumed a lot of Mo Chen's spiritual energy. The dean looked at Instructor Lu lying on the bed and couldn't help but sigh. He slowly said, "Cultivators don't find it scary to get injured. The scariest thing is to get sick without knowing it." His illness came so fiercely and without any warning. It could really take his life at any time. The dean said this out of regret. However, these words were like a thunderclap in Instructor Lu's ears, shaking his heart. Suddenly, he remembered something from 2 days ago. Recalling the scene from 2 days ago and looking at today's events, Instructor Lu couldn't help but wipe away the sweat on his forehead. He couldn't hide the disbelief on his face. "Director Lu, what's wrong?" The dean noticed that something was wrong with his expression and asked. Hearing the dean's voice, Instructor Lu swallowed and looked at him, saying, Dean, I suddenly remembered something very important." "What is it?" "That, 2 days ago, because Bai Ruofei slandered Fengjiu and Yi Jing, we called them to the teaching area. At that time, Instructor Lu pointed at them and flew into a rage. At that time. What happened at that time?" The dean asked in a low voice. "Oh. I remember now. At that time, Fengjiu scolded him for being crazy," one of the instructors said. The other person shook his head when he heard this. No. His tone didn't sound like he was scolding. It sounded more like a reminder. "Yes, we didn't notice it at that time, and we didn't think of it before. It was only when the director mentioned it that I remembered. At that time, Fengjiu said to Director Lu, 'Mentor, you're sick, you need to be treated.'" Director Lu gulped and paused for a moment before continuing. "At the time, the atmosphere wasn't too pleasant. We all thought that he was just speaking in a fit of anger, but I just remembered that Fengjiu said that he would collapse within 3 days. Hearing this, the dean's heart trembled, and his eyes narrowed. "You mean, he already saw that there was a problem with Director Lu's health 3 days ago?" "Yes, that's what I think. I was thinking, since he studied alchemy, could he also be proficient in medicine?" Instructor Lu looked at the dean and asked. However, when he thought of this, he felt that it wasn't very likely. Fengjiu was the only student in the alchemy department, and he was also a heaven-rank student. If he also had medical skills, then this youth was too heaven-defying. "Where is Fengjiu now?" the dean immediately asked. "If he's not in the spiritual department, then he's naturally in the alchemy department," Instructor Lu replied. Chapter 7:13. "Yes, I'll immediately send someone to bring him here," Director Lu said as he quickly went outside and called for 2 students from the spiritual academy to quickly go to the alchemy department to find Fengjiu. Due to the news of Director Lu fainting, the teachers and students of the Spiritual Academy and the Profound Academy heard about it. Even the Medicine Peak knew that a teacher was on the brink of death due to the arrival of several alchemists. However, in the nearly sealed alchemy department, Fengzhou's cave was located a few mountains away from the alchemy peak. Not to mention, Fengzhou was still sleeping in the cave and had no idea about what was happening outside. Guan Shilin and Yi Jing sat outside the cave, chatting as they waited for Fengzhou to wake up. Because the barrier around the cave wasn't opened, they couldn't enter and couldn't hear their shouts, so they could only wait outside. Because the two of them came early in the morning, they naturally didn't know that the Spiritual Academy and the Profound Academy were spreading the news of Director Lu's death. Until two students from the Spiritual Academy rushed over on a crane. When they saw the two people chatting under the tree, they couldn't help but be startled. They looked at each other and walked forward. "Senior Sister Yi Jing." The two of them called out as their gazes fell on the man in the Profound Academy's uniform. After sizing him up, one of them came to the front of the cave and shouted, "Fengzhou! Fengzhou, come out quickly, Director Lu is looking for you." Hearing that, Yi Jing and Guan Shilin were startled. After looking at each other, Yi Jing asked, "What's going on? Why are you looking for Fengzhou again?" "Fengzhou, Fengzhou, come out quickly, Director Lu is looking for you." The student shouted loudly, his voice filled with spiritual energy. If Fengzhou didn't set up a soundproof barrier, it would have been fine. But now that the cave was soundproof, no matter how loudly they shouted, the person sleeping inside couldn't hear them. Seeing that there was no movement for a long time, the two of them turned to Yi Jing and said, "Senior Sister Yi Jing, Teacher Lu wants Fengzhou to go to the teaching area immediately." "Where is he? Or did he go out? Why hasn't there been any response after we've called for so long?" "She's in her cave dwelling, but there's a soundproof enchantment around her cave dwelling. The sounds from the outside can't be heard. I heard from her beasts that she slept very late last night. I reckon that she won't wake up until noon today at the earliest." "Until noon?" The faces of the two students changed. "How can we do that? This matter can't wait." "What can't wait?" Guan Shilin asked, frowning slightly as he looked at the two students whose expressions had changed slightly. "Instructor Lu can't wait any longer. Mentor Lu is dying. Director Lu said that Fengzhou might be able to save him. He asked us to quickly call him over." The two students spoke. They didn't really believe that Fengzhou could save Director Lu. After all, he was just a new student. How could he save someone who couldn't even be saved by a pharmacist and a doctor? It was probably because Instructor Lu and the others had no other choice that they came up with the idea of making a Hail Mary effort. When the Dean and Director Lu were talking, they were standing guard outside. They also heard the sounds inside and came to call Fengzhou over. It seemed that 2 days ago, Fengzhou said that Director Lu was sick and needed to be treated. For some reason, they thought of looking for Fengzhou. Who knew that when they came here, Fengzhou actually set up a soundproof barrier in the cave dwelling? How despicable. Chapter 7:14. He collapsed when he was scolding in class. His condition is very serious. Yao Feng's teacher went over, as did the academy's doctor. Even that young master Mo Chen went over. They all said that he can't be saved. One of the students said anxiously, "Director Lu told us to look for Fengzhou immediately, but what should we do now that he has set up a soundproof barrier? Fengzhou doesn't have any medical skills, there's no point in looking for him." Could it be that the principal and the vice principal didn't care? With their connections, they should be able to find a highly skilled doctor in Qingting country. Why did they come to look for Fengzhou? Yi Jing frowned as she spoke. Thinking about how Director Lu's life was in danger, she couldn't help but say to Guan Shilin, "Director Lu is also my teacher. I owe him a debt of gratitude for his guidance. I have to rush back to take a look." With that, she left hurriedly without waiting for Guan Shilin to speak. Guan Shilin watched Yi Jing leave and turned to look at the two anxious students. His eyes moved slightly as he asked, even the doctor and Yao Feng's teacher can't save him, why did they come to look for Fengjiu? Xiao Jiu's identity as the ghost doctor should be unknown to the people in the academy. Fengjiu said that Director Lu would collapse within 3 days. I didn't think that his crow's beak would be right. Look, Director Lu told us to look for him. One of them said. Seeing that waiting here wasn't a solution, he hurriedly left to report that they couldn't enter the cave abode. Even their voices couldn't be heard. At the teaching area. What? You didn't see him? You can't even enter the cave abode? Director Lu glared and scolded, if you can't enter the cave abode, don't you know how to shout? What a waste of breath. The two students hurriedly said, we shouted, but that guy even set up a soundproof barrier when he slept. Our voices couldn't be heard. Hearing this, not only was Director Lu stunned, even the few teachers who came out with him widened their eyes in shock. What the hell is Fengjiu doing? He even has to set up a soundproof barrier when he sleeps. Why is his habit so different from others? I heard from her that she has a bad temper when she wakes up. She didn't get enough sleep and was in a bad mood. In addition, she should have gone to bed very late last night. She didn't want to be disturbed today, so she must have set up that soundproof barrier. I just didn't expect this to happen to Director Lu. Yi Jing walked over and said. She had just gone in to see Director Lu, and the director had said that he could only be stabilized for a few hours. Once the time was up, if no one could save him, then he might really. I'll go take a look. As Director Lu spoke, he decided to personally make a trip there. Thus, he let two students lead the way and quickly headed towards Fengjiu's cave residence. At the same time, the vice head who had hurried to the black market had sped up his pace. As soon as he stepped into the black market's main entrance, his aura became slightly unstable. After handing over the dean's token, he was invited inside. Not long after, the black market's president walked out with a smile. Vice Academy head, what brings you here? He waved his hand, gesturing for the servants to serve tea. After old Guan stabilized his breath, he cupped his hands and said, President Gong, please forgive me for my hasty visit. I have something to ask of you. Oh. Something to ask of me? Ha ha ha, Vice Academy head Guan really knows how to joke. The School of Stars and Clouds is such a powerful force, why would they need the black market's help? The black market's president chuckled and took a sip of tea. Chapter 7:15. Hearing this, President Gong, who was sipping his tea, paused, a trace of surprise flashing through his eyes. Looking towards the anxious Vice Academy head Guan, he asked, Vice Academy head Guan, why have you thought of looking for the ghost doctor? To tell you the truth, President Gong, one of our academy's teachers suddenly fell to the ground and couldn't get up. His life is in danger, and the academy's pharmacists, alchemists, and doctors can't do anything about it. Thus, I thought of the ghost doctor's famous name. It said that her medical skills can even bring the dead back to life. Out of desperation, our headmaster ordered me to inquire about the ghost doctor's whereabouts. Our black market's relationship with the ghost doctor is indeed unusual. However, she has also instructed us not to reveal her whereabouts. This Gong is truly unable to help with Vice Academy head Guan's request. He shook his head and continued, besides, distant water can't put out a nearby fire. You'd better find another doctor. President Gong, this is a human life. Please, President Gong, help us. The vice president stood up and bowed respectfully. Seeing this, President Gong sighed lightly, it's not that I don't want to help, but that I can't. As the president of the black market, I naturally have to be responsible for the black market. With her position in our black market, even if I see her, I have to obediently bow and not do anything offensive. You don't understand the ghost doctor. She saves people based on her preferences. Even if you find her, so what? You'll only be wasting your energy. Besides, since the higher-ups have instructed us to keep her information confidential, we can't reveal it to the outside world. President Gong walked out, but just as he was about to step out of the hall, he paused and turned back to look at Vice Academy head Guan, saying meaningfully, if you want to save someone, why should you give up what's near and seek what's far away? Hearing this, Vice Academy head Guan's expression froze, and he couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Hearing President Gong's meaningful words before leaving, he couldn't help but mutter in a low voice, if you want to save someone, why should you give up what's near and seek what's far away? Give up what's near. Give up what's near, what does he mean? Give up what's near and seek what's far away, near. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. His expression changed as he whispered, could it be that it's in their academy? He had given up on going to the nearest place and instead came here to ask. If there really was a solution, then this was the only solution. However, most of the people in their academy had already tried. Could it be that there was someone else who had the ability to do so? Although he was puzzled, he did not dare to delay and quickly headed to the academy. Just as he walked out of the black market, President Gong walked out with a smile. At this moment, a question came from beside him. President, why did you reveal the ghost doctor's whereabouts to him? An old man appeared beside him and asked doubtfully. I only said that there's no need to seek the farthest. If he can really guess it, it's his ability. As he spoke, there was a hint of laughter in his voice, and he continued, I just feel that it's very interesting. The ghost doctor has already become a student of their academy, yet they don't know about it, and even came to the black market to look for her. Hee, how interesting. At the same time, in front of Feng Jiu's cave house, Guide Lu launched a series of spirit force attacks, but he couldn't break the barrier. He couldn't help but stare. He was embarrassed, ashamed, and anxiously cursed while gritting his teeth. Chapter 7:16. The cave residences of the alchemy department were indeed protected by a barrier, but the barrier was not that strong. Even an Oris core stage teacher like him couldn't open the enchantment here. Just how angry was he? In addition to the two students who followed him, some other heaven-grade students also followed. At this time, when they saw that Director Lu could not break the barrier even after several attacks, they could not help but be dumbfounded. Feng Jiu actually had the ability to strengthen the barrier to such an extent. Even Director Lu, who was in the multiple core stage, could not open it. Seeing that the barrier was almost immovable, the corners of their mouths twitched. They also wanted to ask, is this to prevent thieves? Or to prevent assassinations? In fact, Feng Jiu did not want to prevent anything. He strengthened the barrier because he was afraid that her alchemy would be too loud and spread out. As for the soundproof barrier, it was only because she wanted to have a good sleep without being disturbed. Who would have thought that these people would come looking for her so early in the morning? Boom! Bang, bang, bang. Rumbling sounds of impact could be heard from time to time. When the surrounding students saw that Director Lu was sweating profusely and panting, they could not help but look at each other. One of them stepped forward and cautiously suggested. Lu, Director Lu. The barrier could not be opened, and he was embarrassed. When he thought about how Director Lu was waiting there and his life was in danger, he suddenly became angry. When he saw the student step forward, he immediately shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" The student shrank his shoulders and said, "Director Lu, why don't we ask the dean to come over?" Director Lu's face turned red, and he glared at the cave residence that was not moving at all. He flicked his sleeves and said, "I'll go by myself." As soon as he finished speaking, he quickly went to the teaching office and did not dare to delay. Guan Shilin, who had called the big black bear and Lao Bai to sit under a tree not far away, glanced at the leaving figure of the teacher. His eyes moved slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. Director Lu, who hurried back to the teaching office, found the dean with a red face. "Dean, That brat not only set up a soundproof barrier when he slept, he also strengthened the barrier of the cave residents. I can't break his barrier. Hearing this, the dean was slightly surprised. He strengthened the barrier. And even you can't break it? He was shocked in his heart. How could a mere student be so capable? Director Liu was a gold core stage cultivator, but he could not even break a student's barrier. I'll go take a look. You stay here. The dean instructed, and under the guidance of the student, he went to Fengjiu's cave residence. When he arrived at the cave abode, his gaze swept past the many spiritual academy, profound academy, and students surrounding the cave abode. His gaze landed on the big black bear and the strange horse under the tree. These are Fengjiu's pet beasts. Just as he was looking at the strange horse, he suddenly saw the strange horse of an unknown breed grin at him, revealing a row of horse teeth. His wise gaze moved slightly. After he glanced at the strange horse, his gaze turned and landed on the student wearing the Xian Academy's uniform. He didn't break the cave's barrier first, but instead walked towards him. You must be Guan Shilin, Fengjiu's elder brother. The dean spoke with certainty, and a smile appeared on his face. Guan Shilin glanced at the dean, stood up, and bowed respectfully. Guan Shilin greets the dean. Since you are Fengjiu's elder brother, you should know if he knows medicine, right? The dean looked at him and asked. Chapter 717. On a nearby hill, Mo Chen, who had already left the teaching office, heard that Director Liu and the others had come looking for Fengjiu but could not meet him. They said that the barrier had been strengthened and a soundproof barrier had been set up. He was surprised and came over to take a look. He did not expect to see the dean here as well. Why did he not want that youth? Could it be that the youth knew medicine? His gaze shifted and fell on the man in the Xian Academy uniform. Was this the youth's sworn brother, Guan Shilin? Hearing the dean's question, he watched quietly. Since he was the youth's brother, he should know very well whether the youth knew medicine or not. If he said that the youth did not know medicine, perhaps there was no need to break the barrier. However, even if he knew medicine, Director Liu's condition was too serious. How could a youth like him save him? Under the tree, the dean did not rush him. He looked calmly at Guan Shilin and waited for his answer. Guan Shilin also looked at him. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, compared to whether he knows medicine or not, I think the dean should be more concerned about whether he will save Director Liu or not. Hearing this, the dean's heart shook. The hidden meaning of his words caused waves to surge in his heart. He was extremely shocked. He understood what Guan Shilin meant. Instead of asking whether Fengjiu knew medicine, they should be more worried about whether he would save Director Liu. If he saved Director Liu, then he knew medicine. If he did not want to save Director Liu, then he only needed to say that he did not know medicine. From the beginning to the end, none of them had thought about this problem. They only found out that Fengjiu knew that there was a problem with Director Liu's health 2 days ago. First, she sent a student to call him over. Then, Director Liu came over to break the barrier to call him over. Now, Fengjiu came over personally to call him over. They took all of this for granted. They took it 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 for granted. As long as they said something, Fengjiu would have no choice but to obey. In an instant, he understood. While he was shocked, he was also shocked. If it weren't for the young man's reminder, even if they broke the barrier and woke Fengjiu up, Fengjiu might not have helped them. Thinking of this, he took a deep look at Guan Shilin, cupped his hands and bowed deeply. Thank you. He thanked him for his reminder. It was his words that had enlightened him. Guan Shilin looked at the director and slightly leaned to the side to receive half of his salute. At the same time, he returned the salute, I wouldn't dare. When the surrounding people saw the dean bow to the young man under the tree, they all widened their eyes in shock. They looked at the scene in disbelief and felt that this scene was so unreal. Not far away, on the mountain top, Mo Chen's eyes flickered when he heard their conversation. He did not leave. He only stood there quietly and looked at the cave abode. He looked at the dean who was standing under the tree and had no intention of breaking the barrier. At the same time, when the vice director rushed back to the teaching office and heard Director Lu's words, a thought flashed through his mind. His heart shook as he remembered the rumors about the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor, dressed in red, a handsome young man. He then remembered the words of the black market president: to save a life, there was no need to give up what was near at hand and seek what was far away. The vice director only felt a huge boom in his mind. It was as if a bolt of lightning had exploded in his mind. His mind went blank. It's him. It's him. It's him. Chapter 7:18. When all the surrounding students looked at the principal, who was standing quietly under the tree, wondering why he hadn't broken the barrier to call Fengjiu out, they heard a surprised and excited voice come from afar. Principal. Principal, I know. It's him, it's him. The vice head's figure was like a flash of light, instantly arriving in front of the principal. He was about to speak when he saw the principal raise his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. What do you mean it's him? Didn't I tell you to go to the black market and inquire about the ghost doctor? Is there any news? The principal asked. Because of the soundproof barrier, other than Guan Shilin standing next to him, no one else could hear their conversation. When Guan Shilin heard this, he glanced at the dean and then at the excited vice director. Then, he lowered his gaze. It's him, it's Fengjiu. He's the ghost doctor, he should be the ghost doctor. The vice head said excitedly, grabbing the principal's arm, full of excitement. I told you, he's not simple, right? Not only is his spiritual energy cultivation outstanding, his talent is outstanding, and he can refine pills. Most importantly, he's actually the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor is a pharmacist. It's said that his medicine has already reached the level of a medicine saint. Now that such a genius is actually a student of our academy, how did such a good thing fall into our Xingyun Academy's lap? When he reached the end of his speech, he was obviously a little too excited and spoke incoherently. He didn't know what he was saying, but there was only one piece of information reverberating in his mind. Fengjiu, that red-clothed youth that he had taken a fancy to, was actually the renowned ghost doctor. Hearing this, the principal's heart trembled. He instinctively looked at Guan Shilin next to him, and when he saw the calmness on his face, he knew that the vice head was telling the truth. There was no need to confirm or ask, just looking at Guan Shilin was enough. He was Fengjiu's older brother, so he naturally knew about Fengjiu's matters. In addition to his previous reminder, at this moment, there was no doubt that Fengjiu was the ghost doctor. Only, he had never expected that the person he was looking for would be someone from their academy. What was even more unexpected was that this student who had always lived in seclusion and had a cheeky smile on his face, giving others the impression that he was lazy, leisurely, and kind and easy to bully, was actually that famous ghost doctor. No one knew just how shaken his heart was at this moment. No one knew just how great the fluctuations in his heart were at this moment. At this moment, he understood even more why Guan Shilin had reminded him of that sentence. If it was just a normal student, they wouldn't have cared at all, but if it was the phantom doctor, then the consequences would be dire. The excited vice headmaster saw that the headmaster was slightly startled, as if he was in a daze. He immediately called out, "Headmaster! Dean! Can't you hear me? Old Guan, you're not young anymore. You need to think twice before doing anything. What will the students and instructors think of you if you make such a big fuss all the way here?" The dean calmed himself down and looked at the vice head. "Old Guan, you're not young anymore. You need to think twice before doing anything. I'm not agitated. Even if you're agitated, you need to know your limits. the headmaster said in a low voice. Hearing the headmaster's low voice, the vice-headmaster finally calmed down. He had been too agitated before to notice, but now he felt that something wasn't right. Chapter 7:19. Hearing his words, the dean slowly exhaled. His wise eyes fell on the cave as he slowly said, "I'll wait here." Wait? The vice-dean was startled. "We can wait, but Director Liu can't." "How about this? I'll go call him. This is a matter of life and death." In the past, it would have been fine, but this concerns the life of a teacher. "We can't wait." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, but was stopped by the dean. "If I say wait, then wait. Whether or not he lives will depend on Director Liu's luck." But the vice-dean turned back to look at the dean's serious face and the expressionless Guan Shilin. He really didn't know why they had to wait. Seeing this, the dean sighed. "Old Guan. Who did you say he was?" "The ghost doctor. Fengjiu is the ghost doctor." At this point, his eyes lit up again. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have remembered something. His expression gradually changed from excitement to calmness. At this moment, he finally understood the dean's meaning. Yes, Fengjiu was the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor wasn't someone they could ask to do whatever they wanted. So what if he was in their academy? From what he knew, the ghost doctor had an eccentric personality. He did everything as he pleased. If he didn't admit it and didn't want to save someone, then there was no point in their enthusiasm. If they wanted to ask him to save someone, then they couldn't treat him as a student of the academy. They had to treat him as the ghost doctor and give him the respect he deserved. Otherwise, things would only backfire. Also, since he had entered their academy, he didn't want his identity as the ghost doctor to be exposed. If they exposed his identity, he was afraid. Thinking of this and how he had been shouting excitedly the entire way, he couldn't help but wipe away his cold sweat. He had experienced Fengjiu's eccentric temper before. That was close, that was close. At this moment, he calmed his emotions and glanced at the dean. Then, his gaze fell on Guan Shilin, who hadn't said anything. He smiled and asked, "Shilin, Fengjiu is sleeping inside?" Hearing this, Guan Shilin glanced at him and nodded. "Yes." "Oh, so it's like that. How long does he usually sleep before waking up?" Director Liu only had a few hours. If Fengjiu fell asleep like this, then... It's hard to say. He shook his head and didn't say anything else. "Then let's wait," he said with a sigh. He stood next to the dean and looked at the immortal's cave. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the vice-president standing there. Wasn't he here to call Fengjiu? Why didn't the dean and the vice-dean break the barrier and let people in to call him out? What the hell is going on? Yi Jing also came over. However, when she saw the strange scene, her heart skipped a beat. Her gaze also fell on the cave. 2 hours passed, and there was still no movement from the dean and the ghost doctor. 4 hours passed, and there was still no movement. Everyone gradually became restless and began to discuss in low voices. Excluding the previous time, there were less than 4 hours left. Even the ghost doctor couldn't help but feel anxious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only hope that Fengjiu would wake up quickly and leave the cave. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.